I resided near my dearly loved husband, yet my mother-in-law, Alice, was unkind towards me. She was really mean. My husband, Harry, and his family didn't like her either. When Harry and I first started dating, I was too scared to ask him why he didn't like his mom. He didn't want to talk about it at first, but when he did, he told me, "My mom isn't a good person. I know you see good in everyone, but my mom is mostly bad." "Why do you think that, Harry? Did something bad happen?" "Yeah, a lot of things happened. She's greedy and only thinks about herself. Her spending caused my parents to get divorced, and she even got credit cards in mine and my sister's names when we were kids. My dad had to pay off all those debts to fix our credit. Oh my goodness. Alice never paid them back, but she lives in such a fancy house and spends a lot of money. That house was supposed to be my dad's. Mom threatened to stop us from seeing Dad if he didn't give her the house. The money she has actually comes from child support payments from Dad. She hardly used them for us. The way Alice treated Harry and his sister, Elena, was really awful. It's hard for me to even think about without getting upset. It completely changed how I saw Alice after meeting Charlie, Harry's dad. It was clear that Alice was the real problem. She took advantage of Charlie and his money. It was really sad. I didn't see or deal with Alice much before Harry and I got married because they didn't have a close relationship. But after we got married, I saw firsthand what she was like. Alice was always asking Harry for money. She manipulated and guilt-tripped him into giving her money. Because of this, Harry could hardly save any money for himself. Things got even worse when we decided to buy a house. None of us could afford to buy it outright, but we saved up enough money for the down payment. It was our dream home, and we loved it, but Alice just got greedier. She even came to our house and said, "Wow, nice house you have here. Did you manage to get my son to pay for it? This house is huge. We're both contributing to paying for this house, Alice, and really, it's none of your concern who owns it." "Well, it's my concern if my son is involved. What's his is mine too. And speaking of him, I need him to send me some money. We're struggling at home." "What, are you serious? We sent you $2,000 this month. What happened to that money?" "What I do with the money isn't your concern. Just tell him to send it through Venmo and make sure he's more generous this time." That was her attitude every time I dealt with her. She acted like she deserved everything and didn't care about anyone else. She even took money from Elena and Charlie every month, despite having a part-time job. I doubt it even covered her expensive Starbucks habit. Her lavish lifestyle was funded by others, but I didn't feel the impact because Harry took care of everything. Little did I know, things would soon take a turn for the worse. You see, about 2 years after we got married, Harry passed away unexpectedly from a rare illness. It was a shock, and we didn't have time to prepare. I was devastated and felt like giving up. Harry was my soulmate, and I couldn't imagine life without him. Elena and Charlie were there for me during this difficult time. They helped me cope while they mourned Harry too. It brought us closer together, but Alice didn't seem affected at all. She barely shed a tear at the funeral and never reached out to me or helped with the arrangements. Alice seemed more focused on her own agenda. Right after the funeral, she said, "Now that the funeral is done, let's discuss Harry's will." "What do you mean?" "Have some decency, Alice. You just lost your son, and all you care about is his will. Don't lecture me. I need to know what I'm getting from his belongings. You're not getting anything. How could you expect to when you've been nothing but a terrible mother to him? That can't be true. I'll sue you if you don't give me my share." Most of his money went towards his medical bills, plus he gave you a lot of money every month, leaving him with hardly any savings. You've got some nerve to ask for more after everything. He's the one who paid for the house you live in. I know that. I want my share of it. It can't all be yours. The house belongs to me, and there's nothing you can do to change that. You better keep your distance. Harry put up with you, but I won't. I'll make sure I get what's fair. You'll hear from me. With that, Alice stormed off. I couldn't believe what had just happened. It only made me sadder to see how little Harry's mother cared about his passing. I broke down again, knowing there was more bad news to come. When I got home after the funeral, I noticed that someone had been in the house. I panicked and checked all my belongings. It turned out that most of Harry's things were missing. I couldn't even find his wedding ring, the one he gave back to me so I could keep it as a memory of him. Now it was gone from the house. Even our wedding album was missing. I was on the brink of another breakdown and had no idea who could have done this. It had to be someone close to us. A thief would have taken much more. In my mind, there was only one person who could have done this. At that moment, I received a call from Alice. She said, "Now that you've had some time to think, I'll give you a chance. Sign over your share of the house." "How can you still be doing this, Alice? That's never going to happen. You're still being stubborn, I see. Here's the deal, Mia. I have Brett's wedding ring with me, and I've also gathered all his childhood belongings along with your wedding album from the house." "What? How is that even possible?" "It was simple to make a spare key from Harry's house keys. I slipped in while you were occupied with a casket. It's quite a pity, isn't it? You'll hand those items back over, Alice." "I'll inform the police." "Yes, you could do that, but I'd destroy them before the police arrive. They might catch me, but you'll never see your precious items again. What do you want?" "Sign over the house, Mia. I want the entire house since you've been so cheeky with me. I'll give you back the items as soon as you sign the papers." And with that, she hung up on me. I was left in disbelief. I didn't know what to do. Alice had taken all the precious things I had left of Harry. I wanted them back desperately. The house meant little to me, but the more I thought about her actions, the angrier I became. I couldn't let her win, not after everything she had done to Harry and now to me. I immediately called Charlie and Elena to the house. I explained everything Alice had said and done. They were shocked and disgusted by her behavior. Elena said, "I'm ashamed that I'm related to someone like her. My son isn't even laid to rest yet, and she's already up to her old tricks. How can she be so heartless? This is unforgivable. I'm going to her house right now and confront her. You're not signing away the house you and Harry made so many memories here. I won't stand for this." "No, Elena. If we confront her, Alice might destroy the items. I need them back, safe and sound. I'll call her and pretend to agree to sign over the house. She won't suspect a thing. But you can't actually do it. It's crazy. Please, Mia. Don't give in to her evil schemes. Don't worry, guys. I won't let her win. I had a plan. Alice had caused so much harm in our lives, and it was time to make her face the consequences. She disrespected Harry's memory and tried to take my house. I wasn't going to let her get away with it easily. I shared my plan with Charlie and Elena, and they agreed to help me. So, I called Alice and told her to get the papers ready. I pretended to be ready to sign over the house to her. Alice was thrilled at my apparent surrender. She said the papers would be ready soon. The nerve of this woman was unbelievable. A week later, Alice called me to sign the papers. I went through them carefully and then handed her some additional papers prepared by my lawyer. I told her to sign them. "I've already signed the property papers and processed them," I said. Here's the legal document stating that you've accepted the gift. Oh, do I need to sign this? I can't wait, just tell me what to do. You just need to sign these papers. That's all. There, I've signed these papers and accepted your gift, so I hope you can move out of the house this month. I'll slowly start shifting there. I need to make a lot of redecorations, so make it quick. Don't worry, Alice, you have exactly a month to move into your new house. There won't be any issues. See, it wasn't so difficult, was it? You get what you wanted, and I get what I wanted. Alice was foolish enough to believe I'd just sign away the house. Well, it turns out she was the foolish one. What Alice didn't realize was that I had swapped the papers. I put my signature on a fake document filled with nonsense. She never bothered to read the papers she signed. Alice thought she was signing to accept the house as a gift. She's going to be in for a surprise when she finds out how wrong she was. Alice was in for a huge shock, being her foolish and overly confident self. She decided to throw a lavish party. Apparently, she spent most of her savings on it. I suppose she assumed everyone would keep funding her extravagant lifestyle. She even called me and said, "Hey, Mia, I'm hosting a big party this weekend. You know, your little gift has made my life, so I'm going to invite everyone to share the good news. I want you there when I announce my new house. I'm genuinely happy for you, Alice. I must express my gratitude for returning the items unharmed. You know how much they meant to me. I'll be there to show my appreciation." That's fantastic. I can't wait to brag about the house to everyone. They'll be green with envy. I'm sure they'll be incredibly envious. In my mind, I was laughing uncontrollably. I was getting closer to getting my revenge. Alice used my late husband's memory as leverage to try to take my house. I'll never forgive her for that. I silently prayed to my husband's soul for strength and support, and seeking justice. I knew you would be on my side, relishing the idea of setting things right. On the day of the party, I felt a bit nervous, but Elena reassured me, saying, "Don't worry, Mia, we're here for you. It's time Mom faces the consequences of her actions." I can't wait to see the look on her face. I know, Elena. She's had this coming for a long time. I just hope everyone sees her for who she really is. Everyone will be on your side once they hear the whole story. You're incredibly brave, Mia. My brother would be so proud of you. Elena's words filled me with courage. I felt confident and prepared to face whatever came my way. When we arrived at the party, Alice had indeed thrown a grand affair as she promised. It was evident as she was ecstatic about her new house and wanted to celebrate it in style. I couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement as I took in all the festivities. Many familiar faces filled the room, and I was glad to be surrounded by friends. The real spectacle began when Alice stood up to make a toast. Everyone was curious about the reason behind such an extravagant party, so they eagerly awaited her announcement. Kind said, "Thank you all for being here. Today is a special day for me, and I wanted to share it with my loved ones. Recently, I achieved a lifelong dream, so this party is a celebration of my accomplishment. Alice, why don't you just come out with it? I'm sure everyone's curious about why we're all gathered here." "Of course, I'll share, Mia. It's only fair to let them in on the excitement. Everyone, I've been given my dream home by Mia. She generously gifted me her old house. I'm absolutely thrilled. She made a huge sacrifice, and I'm so grateful to her." "Thank you for what, Alice? For falling for your scheme and signing away my house? Well, you're in for a surprise. Let me tell you." "What do you mean?" "I tricked you all. None of that happened. Everyone, I'm here to reveal the truth. Alice kept some valuable possessions of my late husband and forced me to sign over the house. She blackmailed me, threatening to destroy those items and make me suffer. Alice planned everything from the moment my late husband passed away. There was a collective gasp from the crowd as they exchanged shocked whispers. I turned to look at Alice, who appeared visibly nervous. She stuttered, "No, no, Mia is just joking. None of that happened." She couldn't handle the upkeep of such a large house, and the mortgage was too much for her, so she decided to sign it over to me. It's not true at all. Elena and Charlie know the truth. They'll vouch for me. Mia is telling the truth. Alice, you tried to blackmail her into signing away the house. Elena and I tried to intervene, but you didn't listen to any of us. Yes, that's correct. You need to stop lying to everyone. All of you acted in my best interest, Alice. I deserve the house too, after all, my son contributed to it as well. That house should rightfully belong to me. Mia was foolish to give it up for a few sentimental items. Are you that naive, Alice? Did you honestly believe I would sign over my house to you? The room fell silent, and even Alice appeared stunned by my words. Charlie and Elena exchanged amused glances in the background. What do you mean, Mia? Alice stammered. You should have taken the time to read the papers before signing, Alice. You should have even consulted a lawyer before putting your signature on anything. I swapped the papers you signed. Here, take a look at what they actually say. Wait, this says I've signed over my house to you. How is this possible? I had a lawyer prepare the papers. No, no, this is fake. Can't you see? This is an ice signature, Alice. It seems like your own scheming has backfired on you. Technically, your house now belongs to me, while my house thankfully still remains in my name. Here's your eviction notice. Your house now belongs to me, and I want you out within a month. And don't even think about asking us for money. We're done with you, too. You won't get a penny from us. You should be ashamed of yourself. If you have any decency left, you won't set foot near my door again. No, no, this can't be happening. You can't do this. Oh, my God. Before she could finish her sentence, Alice simply fainted. I was sorely tempted to laugh at the scene. No one rushed to help Alice, instead, they threw disgusted looks her way. Some even left the party after offering me words of support. Nobody defended Alice because they knew exactly the kind of person she was. It was Charlie who called 911 and requested an ambulance. Alice was taken to the hospital for evaluation. Meanwhile, I stayed at the party with Elena and enjoyed myself. Everyone there criticized Alice, as they never liked her manipulative ways. This time, they were glad to see someone stand up to her. The next day, I received numerous calls from Alice. She begged me to cancel the agreement and give her the house back. She even threatened legal action. I simply reminded her that she had signed the papers willingly, and there was nothing she could do. I also warned her that I could legally evict her from the house after a month. Despite her pleas, I stood firm. Before the month was up, I found a perfect buyer for Alice's home. They were a young couple who reminded me a lot of myself and my late husband, so I accepted their offer and sold the house for a good price. Alice lashed out at me when she found out but quickly backed off when I threatened to involve the police for harassment. Without the financial means to handle legal troubles, she fell silent. Later, Jordan and Elena told me that Alice had been begging them to take her in. She was on the brink of homelessness and had no money. However, they were fed up with her toxic behavior and refused to support her again. Meanwhile, I've been gradually rebuilding my life with the proceeds from selling Alice's house. I was able to fully pay off my own home. I even had enough left over to treat Charlie and Elena to a vacation. While I may not be interested in dating again, It brings me comfort to know that I can continue living in the house I shared with my late husband.
After abandoning me during my time in the hospital, my wife is now asking for forgiveness, 12 years later. My name is Robert, and I'm 45 years old. I want to share a life experience here to get some advice. This story goes back 10 years, when I was married to Amanda, my first wife. We were married for 5 years and had 2 children, Jenna and Kevin, who were 5 and 3 at the time. We were living a normal life until one fateful day. One morning, as I was driving to the office, a speeding vehicle coming from the opposite direction rammed into my car. The next thing I remember was waking up in a hospital bed, covered in bandages and plaster. The nurse told me I had just woken up after being in a coma for 2 days. I held my doctor's hand and thanked him for saving my life. I was thankful to be alive, but I had no idea about the disaster that was waiting for me. A week into my treatment, the doctor told me that my lower body was paralyzed and that I might never walk again. I was devastated. Amanda broke down when she heard the news. It was hard for her because she now had to manage the house and take care of the children by herself. I fell into deep depression, unable to accept the reality of being in a wheelchair. Every day I stared at the empty walls of my hospital room, cursing how my life had turned upside down. I feared that I would never be able to play soccer with my kids again, never dance with my wife, and never be free like before. To make things worse, Amanda stopped visiting me as often. In the beginning, she brought the kids to see me 3 times a week. Those moments with my family were the only thing that kept me going. But as time went on, her visits became less frequent. I begged her to bring the children more often, but she would say they didn't want to see me so much. I felt utterly hopeless. Then one day, Amanda handed me divorce papers. She told me she couldn't live with a handicapped man, saying, "I'm still young and desirable. I deserve a normal man." I won't lie. I saw the signs coming when she began to distance herself from me, but I didn't expect it to happen so quickly. About a month after the accident, some friends told me they had seen Amanda out with another man, probably someone in his 50s. They were seen holding hands at cafes and malls, mostly in the evenings or on weekends. Some said she had been having an affair even before my accident, while others thought she had become desperate and ended up with an older, wealthy man. It had been barely 2 months since my accident, and I was still in the hospital when I received the divorce papers. I may sound calm while writing this now, but back then, I was anything but calm. I was devastated and heartbroken. I was confined to a wheelchair, divorced with no income and no savings, having used everything I had to pay for household expenses and the children's education. I had insurance that covered my hospital bills to some extent, but I had to liquidate my savings to cover the remaining expenses. In the end, I was left with nothing. I wanted to scream, bang my head against the wall, and curse my fate. I don't know how I managed to keep myself together back then, but something inside me kept me sane. Maybe the fire of wanting revenge. After being discharged, I moved back to my parents' house. I was 35 years old, divorced with no income, and completely dependent on my elderly mother, both physically and financially. My mother was a florist, running a small shop in the suburbs. The little income from the shop, along with her pension, kept things afloat. With those limited resources, she still offered to support me. It was incredibly painful to be a 35-year-old man relying on his 62-year-old mother. Soon after my discharge, I went to see my children. When I reached my house, it was locked. The neighbors told me that Amanda had moved in with her lover, taking the children with her. According to them, Amanda's lover was a rich, fat old man who had been divorced 3 times and had no children. Some even called Amanda a gold digger, accusing her of being with him only for his money. I managed to get the address of her boyfriend's house and went there. When I arrived, Amanda wouldn't let me see my children, saying they had already adjusted to her boyfriend and even called him Daddy. She claimed that my sudden appearance would only confuse them more. When I insisted on meeting them, she threatened me with a restraining order. I didn't have any money to hire a lawyer. I was barely surviving on my mother's small income, so I had no choice but to back off. Less than 6 months after my accident, and only a few months after our divorce, Amanda was already living with another man. I felt disgusted. I asked her how she could move on so quickly, but she dismissed me. I know it was immature, but I was a helpless, wheelchair-bound father. What else could I do? I begged her for just one chance to prove my worth, but she belittled me, calling me a burden in her life. I asked her if she had been cheating on me before the divorce, since it seemed she was already living with this man so soon after. She brushed me off, saying it was none of my business and that I should never show my face to her again. I stood there, thinking about the 7 years of marriage we had shared, wondering how she could replace me with another man in just a few months. With tears in my eyes, I left. I went back home, feeling completely defeated and humiliated. I cried like a 5-year-old in front of my mother, who comforted me and encouraged me to take control of my life again. I was lost and directionless at first, but I decided to help my mother in her flower shop. I started making bouquets, serving customers, and cleaning the shop. Soon, I realized that the business had huge potential to grow, but my mother was too fragile to handle it on her own. I reached out to my old contacts and secured contracts with event management companies to supply flowers for their events. Gradually, I built a team and started taking contracts for venue decorations. Eventually, I launched my own event management company. It took me 10 long years to rebuild my life, but I did it. Throughout this time, my mother always had my back. She supported and motivated me to bounce back. A year after my accident, I found out that Amanda was leaving the city with our children and her lover. I rushed to the house to see my kids, but by the time I arrived, they were already gone. Before that, I had tried multiple times to reach out to my children, but Amanda insulted me and chased me away every time. Amanda had full custody of the children and could make all the decisions for them. Since I was both physically and financially challenged, I couldn't contest joint custody. I also couldn't challenge her restraining order because I was too broke to hire a lawyer, while Amanda had her wealthy boyfriend, Evan. I didn't know if Evan had been with Amanda before my accident or if he appeared afterward, but I knew he was a wealthy man with a lot of inherited property. Over the last 10 years, whenever I got leads about my children, I would travel to try and meet them, but I failed each time. Amanda constantly threatened to have me arrested, and with her boyfriend's money and connections, it seemed like they could get away with anything. By the way, even after 10 years of living together, that man never married Amanda. A year ago, I finally filed for joint custody. I had been waiting for my event management business to stabilize before taking this step. I filed for custody and was granted 15 days with my children, who are flying to visit me next week. Despite Amanda's best efforts to object to my plea in court, I hired a good lawyer who presented my case well, and I won. Plus, my children are older now, and they were asked if they wanted to meet me. They said yes. I know I can't make up for the 10 lost years, but I hope to spend quality time with my kids. As the day gets closer, I'm feeling both nervous and excited. They're now 17 and 15, and I know teenagers can be difficult. I just hope they aren't too mean or resentful. I have no idea what story Amanda has been telling them for the past decade. Should I tell them the truth about their mother? I'm really unsure. Do any of you have suggestions on how I should approach them? I'm incredibly nervous, but also very excited. I missed 2 critical pieces of information in my original post. First, about my current wife, Ashley. Yes, I remarried a beautiful woman 5 years ago. Ashley is an interior designer. I met her at an event where she was designing the wedding venue, and we were providing the flowers. I had not yet started my own company at that time. It wasn't love at first sight, but we vibed well. We kept meeting at similar events over the next few months and became friends. She was a single mother of a 3-year-old daughter. The idea of starting the event management company was hers because she had worked for one of the companies for many years and had the contacts and knowledge of the business. I partnered with her to launch the business. We dated for a year before getting married. Now we live as a happy family of 4. Ashley, her daughter Anna, my mother, and me. Her daughter was delighted to get a granny, and so was my mother. The second piece of information is regarding the accident compensation. I was hit by a speeding truck, so ideally, I should have been compensated by the logistics company that owned the truck. But at that time, the company got away with paying nothing by manipulating the facts about the accident and pinning the blame on me. I couldn't afford a good lawyer back then, so I didn't get a penny. You know how big companies work. They pay hefty amounts to their attorneys to save their backs. After my marriage to Ashley, she suggested I refile the case since we could afford a better lawyer. The case is still in court, but my lawyer has given us a positive hint that the judgment would come in our favor. Alright, coming back to my story. As I mentioned in my original post 3 months ago, my children were supposed to visit me after 10 years of my divorce. I was excited and nervous, but Ashley calmed me down and supported me through it all. I went to pick them up from the airport. The elder one, Jenna, is 15 now, and the younger one, Kevin, is 13. They have grown into beautiful and handsome teenagers. After the initial greetings, we ran out of things to say, and it was awkward for all three of us. On our way to the house from the airport, I tried to break the ice and ask them about their school life and city. I deliberately avoided talking about their mother, and they didn't bring her up either. The children were unusually silent, or maybe just waiting for an opportunity to plug in their earphones, like any other teenager. Upon reaching home, we were welcomed by Ashley. The children looked shocked, as if they hadn't anticipated this. I don't know why Ashley's presence was a surprise to them. When their mother could live with another man within months of our divorce, why couldn't I remarry? Ashley had set up the guest room for the children. We had lunch together, and Ashley laid out the vacation itinerary we had planned for the family. They gave a neutral reaction to everything. They weren't excited, but they didn't dismiss the plan either. Ashley and I were confused by their mixed response. They locked themselves up in their room, and soon after, I got a call from their mother, Amanda, accusing me of tricking our children. She said I had brought the children to my house so Ashley and I could manipulate them. I felt disoriented by her behavior. She accused me of hiding the truth about my marriage. I was baffled by her accusations. I hung up on her, but she persistently called me. I decided it was time to address the elephant in the room. I called my children and asked them what was the matter. After the initial hesitation, they spoke up. They were mad at me because they were told that I had abandoned them. Amanda had brainwashed the children against me and filled their heads with lies and deceit. I revealed the exact truth to them, that it wasn't me, but their mother who jumped to another man as soon as she got the opportunity. They were kids back then, but they remembered those incidents very well. I told them how Amanda disappeared with them to the old man's house and how she had threatened and chased me away whenever I tried to contact them. I showed them the restraining letter and all the rejected pleadings I had made to meet them. They were in tears and regretted believing their mother's lies all these years. My younger son, Kevin, admitted that once he had tried to reach out to me on social media, but Amanda caught him. She emotionally blackmailed him and made him promise never to contact me again. The children also admitted to being rebuked by Amanda's husband. Amanda and the children were mistreated at family gatherings because she was unmarried. Despite the man paying for their education, he was never a father figure to them. My heart ached as I learned about my children's adversity. After all the truths came out, we hugged each other and cried our hearts out. We went for a week-long vacation in Florida and had a great time together. Jenna and Kevin bonded with Ashley and Anna, who was turning 8 this year. I couldn't be happier seeing all my family together. My children uploaded our group photos on social media, captioning them, "Happy Family." As soon as Amanda saw those photographs, she called them up and berated them for their foolish behavior. She blamed them for betraying her by bonding with us. She texted me, threatening that she would not let me meet my children further if I did anything to turn them against her. I laughed at her hollow threats and continued enjoying our vacation. After returning from the vacation, my children met with my relatives. My relatives happily hosted them, and I was delighted to see the old bonds rekindled. When they were about to leave, they promised to keep in touch despite Amanda's threats. They said they felt suffocated living in that house and would move back with me once they completed high school. I hugged them and bid them goodbye. After going back, they confronted Amanda about her deceit, but she turned the tables on me, accusing me of manipulating them against her. It's been a few months since they returned, but we talk regularly. I hope to have them back with me soon. Thanks a lot. I know it's been a long time since I updated, and there's been a lot of drama in the last 6 months. After my first meeting with my children 3 months ago, the impending court case with the logistics company got settled. Guess what? I got hefty compensation not only for the accident but also for the injustices in the first trial. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but in the initial trial, the logistics company, whose truck rammed into my car, manipulated the case and pinned the blame on me for the accident. As a result, I wasn't compensated at all. I appealed again at my wife's suggestion and won this time. I gave the news to my children, and they were equally elated. They wanted to meet me, and I promised to have them back with me permanently. A month later, Amanda showed up at my office. She held my hand and asked me for forgiveness. I was taken aback by her sudden appearance. She admitted that after my accident, she became desperate and found an old man who wanted a sugar baby. I didn't know about these terms until I Googled them that day. The man had a few horrible experiences with younger women who ran away with his money after a few months, so he decided to settle with a not-so-young sugar girl, Amanda, who was 32 at the time. Amanda had 2 children, which served as a guarantee of her loyalty. The man had clearly stated that he would not marry her and would instead keep her as his mistress because he didn't want to share his inheritance with my children. Amanda agreed to his terms because he promised to feed and fund their education. I asked her why she didn't get a job. She said she had never worked and wasn't sure if she could earn a similar lifestyle to the one her lover gave her for free. She kept saying that she did everything to protect the children's future. She stood her ground, claiming the children would have grown up in poverty if she hadn't taken that step. I got so annoyed at her nagging that I yelled, saying she could have at least given me a chance to bounce back. If she was so concerned about our children's future, she should have discussed it with me instead of jumping to conclusions and deserting me without any warning. I clarified that I had moved on and that her pleas didn't matter to me. She recounted all the happy moments we shared, like our wedding day and the birth of our 2 children. I shrugged her off, saying I was a different person now, and all those memories had faded away. They didn't mean anything to me anymore. She crossed the line by saying that she and my children were my real family, not Ashley and Anna. She claimed that Anna wasn't my daughter and that I could never have a proper family with Ashley and Anna. I was disgusted by her cruel words. She insisted that I take her back so the real family could reunite. I made it clear that I love Ashley and Anna, and they are my real family, not her. She refused to leave my office and created a scene. She finally left when I threatened to call the police. I went home and told my mother and Ashley about the incident. Ashley was naturally distressed, but she's a mature woman and didn't make a big deal out of it. My mother said she never liked Amanda because of her selfishness. Mom even suggested that Amanda had returned only because of the money I had received after the court settlement. That woman is indeed a gold digger. When my children learned about their mother's behavior, they berated her and told her to stay in her lane. I'm not sure how her sugar daddy found out about the incident, but he threatened to throw her out if she tried to reach out to me again. I couldn't be more thankful to him. The latest update is that my children are moving in with me this month. They will stay with us briefly before I enroll them in a nearby college. They wanted to enjoy their college life and stay in a hostel. I believe we should stay connected but also give each other some space to get to know one another better. The children have abandoned Amanda, and in the end, she is left with nothing but her sugar daddy. I hope you enjoy this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe my channel.
Exposing my wife's cheating, sending her videos to friends, suing her, and leaving her behind. Kim and I first met roughly 7 years ago and quickly formed a close friendship. Both of us were raised in the Midwest, where our devout Christian beliefs placed God above all else, even family. Our Sundays were filled with church visits and hopeful discussions about our future plans. I pursued a successful career as an engineer with promising prospects, while Kim thrived in her role selling accounting software for a prominent technology firm based in Atlanta. Before our marriage, my parents generously gifted me a 3-bedroom house upon my college graduation. With their wealth, they aimed to share their success while still alive, unlike many who wait until after passing away. Mom and Dad found joy in giving during their lifetime. Kim and I exchanged vows a little over 5 years ago, and since then, we've been on an endless honeymoon. Our lovemaking life was vibrant, with passionate encounters at least 4 nights a week. We were viewed as soulmates, much to the amusement of our friends, who were envious of our closeness. Our joy multiplied when we welcomed 2 beautiful blonde twin girls into our lives. After their arrival, our focus shifted entirely to raising them in a nurturing and loving environment. Our lifestyle might be deemed dull by some. We typically dined at home most evenings, reserving Friday and Saturday nights for outings and Sundays for church. Unlike peers our age, we weren't drawn to socializing or keeping up with fashion trends. Kim opted for conservative attire both at work and home, reserving our love-making moments exclusively for our bedroom. Built on trust and transparency, forming a sturdy foundation for our marriage, Kim, naturally affectionate, expressed her love through tender gestures of touch, kisses, and hugs, all of which I adored. We relished in sharing our emotions and cherished each other deeply. While raising twins presented its challenges, I cherished every moment spent with them. Though the twins posed some stress for Kim, I gladly supported her through any difficulties. Our partnership was built on effective communication, ensuring we dealt with issues promptly. Life with Kim and our twin girls was going smoothly. However, a week before the annual exhibition, Kim received notice that she had to participate due to others falling ill with the virus. Despite her attempts to decline, she had no choice but to comply due to the urgency of the situation. She expressed her regret, saying she was sorry to leave us for 3 days and that she had tried to avoid it by contacting her boss. She mentioned how much she hated being away from us. I reassured her that we would manage fine without her for a few days and that we would miss her dearly. I helped her pack and accompanied her to the limo arranged by the company for her airport journey. Our marriage had always been solid, built on trust and transparency. There had never been any indication of her behaving in a way that wasn't loving or faithful. We shared everything openly and worked together as a team, especially when it came to our children. On the second night of the exhibition, I received a text from Greg, a colleague and friend who was at a cybersecurity event in Atlanta. He mentioned Kim being at the exhibition and asked if I was supposed to be at the security conference. He seemed curious about the trade show Kim was attending, and I confirmed it was in Atlanta but wasn't sure of the exact name. Greg's messages left me wondering what he was trying to imply. His message contained 2 photos and a video. I sat paralyzed with dread. The first photo depicted my wife in an unfamiliar outfit, the shortest dress I'd ever seen her wear, accentuating her ample chest with a plunging neckline. She wore pumps I didn't recognize, her hair and makeup flawless, radiating stunning allure. Never had she appeared so alluring to me. Initially, upon seeing the first photo, I convinced myself it must be someone resembling Kim, as it seemed implausible it could be her. I chuckled inwardly, musing, I wish Kim would dress like that one day. But the amusement faded when the subsequent photo emerged, a close-up of her closely seated next to Jonathan, one of her bosses. I sat there, stunned, motionless, not even blinking until the next photo materialized, a close-up of her smiling and gazing into Jonathan's eyes. My heart sank at the sight, though I attempted to rationalize that there must be a logical explanation, albeit futile. The following message contained a brief video clip showing my wife kissing Jonathan, her arms wrapped around his neck while his hand rested on her right breast. In that instant, my mind exploded. I felt as if my entire world collapsed upon me, tears of anguish streaming down my face, my heart racing, and a wave of nausea engulfing me. A message came through, "Hey, are you okay? What should I do? Can you see her right now?" "Yes, I'll give her a call right away to check on her." I dialed her number, hearing it ring several times before reaching voicemail. Leaving a message, I expressed our longing to speak with her and ensure she had a pleasant evening. I reached out to Greg, updating him on the call. "I just tried reaching her. What happened?" Greg's remorse was palpable. "David, I'm sorry about this." She took her phone out of her purse, glanced at the caller ID, then returned it to her purse. "I can't believe it's her. I've never seen her behave or dress like this before." "Greg, it's okay. Thank you for being upfront with me. You're a true friend. I'll handle this myself. If possible, avoid confronting her. Keep me informed if anything else occurs, but don't waste time trailing her. I'll handle it from here." "Are you going to be okay, buddy?" "No, I'm far from okay, but I know what I need to do. I'll handle it. I'm still reeling from the shock, but I'll come to terms with everything. Thanks again." "Anytime. I'm here for you. Take care of yourself, Greg." "Thanks once more." I poured a stronger drink and sat in the dimly lit living room, grappling with the sudden collapse of my world. In under 20 minutes, I had been oblivious to any issues in our relationship. How long had this been going on? Was I truly oblivious to the signs? No, she never gave me cause for concern. In fact, over the past 6 months, our bond had grown stronger, our closeness intensified. None of it made sense, leaving me bewildered. In the following hour, Greg sent more photos and videos. A brief clip showed them dancing, his hand on her back. Another captured them kissing on the dance floor. A photo depicted a deep, private kiss on a deserted dance floor, oblivious to the music's end. I acknowledged it was over between us, yet there was much I needed to unravel and comprehend. Leveraging my analytical skills as an engineer and problem solver, I spent the ensuing days devising a plan. Kim surprised me with a call at 10 p.m. After receiving their final photo, I took a deep breath, striving to compose myself. I resolved not to reveal any inkling of awareness about her actions. "Hey there, sorry I missed your earlier call. I was at a dinner meeting and couldn't talk. I miss you so much, baby. Wish I could be there with you, cuddling under the covers, showering you with kisses. I miss you too, Kim. I love you deeply, and thanks for calling. The girls are adorable, and I'll send you some photos. They're missing their mom and want you to come home. I tried to leave tomorrow, but my boss insisted I stay. Hate being away from you, darling. We'll celebrate when you're back. Finish for today? Yes, I'm preparing for bed and another long work day. Love you, baby, and I'll call you tomorrow. Good night, Kim. I love you more than words can express." And with that, I hung up, tears welling up again. What I said was genuine. I loved her more than anything and hoped this was just a terrible dream. Past midnight, I lay in bed, unable to sleep. I wondered if she was truly in her hotel room and what she was up to. My question was answered by another message from Greg. It was a photo of Kim and Jonathan on a lobby sofa, sharing a kiss, his hand beneath her short skirt, her arms wrapped around his neck. They resembled a couple in love, publicly displaying their affection. "And one last thing, buddy. I'm done for today, but it looks like she's busy. Let me know if you want me to stop. I can easily put an end to this. It's tough to face right now, but thanks for the photos. No need, let her go. It's her wrongdoing, not yours. Stay out of it. Thanks again." I cried myself to sleep, knowing that the love of my life had betrayed me. Eventually, exhaustion and the comfort of our marriage vows and our daughter's sleep eased the pain and tears until I woke up the next morning. Kim sent me several affectionate messages, adorned with hearts, kisses, and emojis. She professed her love, expressing how much she missed both me and the girls. She even hinted at a passionate night ahead upon her return. When she came back, she showered me with sweetness and affection, behaving as though nothing had transpired. I began to wonder if perhaps she suffered from dissociative disorder or had been unknowingly medicated. Despite my search for explanations, I realized I needed to confront the reality and prepare for her imminent return home. Our frequent conversations seemed normal, with Kim expressing her longing to reunite with us. I couldn't determine what upset me more, her infidelity or the deceit accompanying it. Feeling deceived cut as deep as witnessing her embrace with Jonathan. Upon learning of my wife's betrayal through Greg's messages, I took decisive action. Leveraging my tech expertise, I discreetly installed tracking software on her phone, initially intended for locating misplaced devices. Opting for the latest software available, I even walked Kim through its setup. This software also featured a voice recorder, capable of capturing calls, texts, and emails, with automatic cloud uploads if activated. Let me clarify, my intention wasn't to spy on her, but circumstances warranted caution. Before this incident, I never considered invading her privacy. However, following recent events, my trust had been shattered irreparably. My priority was safeguarding our daughters and salvaging our marriage, if feasible. Thankfully, caring for the twins kept me occupied, offering respite from thoughts of our disintegrating relationship. Whether it was preparing breakfast, tidying up after them, or engaging in doll play, these moments were precious amidst the turmoil. Trust me, tending to 3-year-old twins is no small feat. It was 2 p.m., and I finally managed to get the girls to settle down for their afternoon nap. After tidying up the house and showering, I sat at the table to catch up. Kim had sent me 6 more affectionate messages, mentioning she would call at 5 p.m. once her day wrapped up. After reading them, I accessed the cloud from my laptop, logged into her account, and reviewed everything recorded since activating the spying software. I sat in shock as I read the messages exchanged with Jonathan. Here are a few excerpts. "You were incredible last night, baby. Can't wait for tonight. Thanks, kitten. I enjoyed it too. Can we head to my room after work before dinner? Certainly, but I need to call my husband first. I should be ready by 5:15. Does your husband suspect anything? Of course not. He thinks I love him, and I'll keep it that way. We've kept it a secret for over 6 months, and he's clueless. Don't worry." My anger became overwhelming, prompting me to stop reading. Kitty? Did he call her kitten? That's my term for her. During closeness. Did she give him that too? Was I truly that oblivious? What kind of fool was I? I dropped my laptop on a chair and screamed, grabbing a lamp from the table and hurling it forcefully into the wall. shattering it into pieces. The rage I had managed to control now consumed me. As I was about to break another lamp, I heard the girls crying. Their cries snapped me back to reality, and I regained control. I rushed into the bedroom, holding both girls in my arms until they calmed down. After cleaning up the glass from my outburst, I let them play in the living room while I sat with another strong drink, reflecting on my actions. In my view, the marriage was beyond repair, and it was time to take action. I lacked the strength to listen to their conversations or review any more files, so I allowed them to accumulate in the cloud. I decided to play along with Kim, just as she had deceived me. My immediate plan was to act like a loving husband while strategizing my next steps. I intended to contact a divorce lawyer, hire a private investigator, and find a way to secure custody of the girls. Their well-being was my top priority and the only thing that truly mattered to me. Hey, sweetheart, how are the girls holding up? They're missing their mommy. Oh my goodness, they're on my mind all day, every day. And of course, you too. I can't wait to wrap my arms around you when I get back. I'm going to give you the warmest kiss you've ever had. I played along saying, oh darling, I think of you constantly, longing to embrace my loving, beautiful wife. Soon, my love, we'll be reunited. Somehow I kept it together, and our call lasted precisely 15 minutes. At 5:15, she bid farewell, saying, I love you, David. I have to go catch the bus back to the hotel. I'll message you later. I love you, another effortlessly delivered lie. She had quite the talent for it. I love you too, sweetheart, more than you can imagine. The pain of her deception had now transformed into contempt, anger, and a desire for revenge. I was determined to expose her lies and hold her accountable. I had loved her wholeheartedly, making this betrayal all the more difficult to bear. I greeted her at the airport, and she embraced and kissed me just as she had promised. Either she was an exceptional actress, or she genuinely cared for me deeply. Was her involvement with Jonathan merely physical? Her behavior continued to baffle me. She spent an hour with the girls, relishing their company. That night, she was exceptionally affectionate in bed, repeatedly expressing how much she missed me and the girls, and lamenting her prolonged absence. She spoke of wanting nothing more than to be with me, holding each other in bed. She was tender, loving, and entirely different from the woman I saw at the fair. I reciprocated her affection and cherished our time together. It felt genuine, and I yearned for it to be authentic because being with her was all I desired. Yet deep down, I knew it would soon come to an end. I kept my newfound knowledge hidden, showering her with love and fulfilling her every night. To outsiders, our relationship seemed idyllic, sparking envy in others. This charade persisted for 3 months, during which I searched for any signs of infidelity but found none. She arrived home from work at her usual time every evening, with no unusual phone calls or text messages. I even dared to hope that it was all a mistake and that things would resolve themselves. Mr. Bryce, a private investigator, called me and arranged to meet the next day. I drove downtown to their office and sat in their conference room. Good afternoon, David. Good to see you again. Likewise, Mr. Bryce. David, I wish I had better news, but unfortunately I have to deliver some bad news. Are you prepared to review our findings? I sighed and nodded in agreement. While I hoped for the best, deep down, I knew what was happening between Kim and Jonathan. Mr. Bryce placed a thick leather 3-ring binder in front of me. It contained sections labeled text messages, voice transcripts, video calls, phone call transcripts, and photos. Mr. Bryce, before we delve into this, I'm perplexed because I've been closely monitoring her activities and schedule for the past 3 months, and nothing seemed out of the ordinary. She's been the ideal wife and partner, and none of this makes sense. Let me guide you through this and see if anything becomes clearer. I refrained from accessing cloud files because I couldn't bear the thought of reading the texts, hoping for a positive outcome. Unfortunately, that hope was dashed. There were over 75 pages of text messages, 25 pages of emails, and 75 pages of time-stamped photos showing them entering and exiting hotel rooms together. Additionally, there were over 82 video calls and 50 pages of phone conversations. Kim and Jonathan had been visiting a motel at least 4 times a week for the past 3 months, spending an average of 2 hours together during each visit. It appears that for the past month, there have been 2 men meeting your wife 4 times a week. Do you recognize this man? Oh my God, is this Jason Sinclair? Is he the CEO of her company? Are you saying she's involved with 2 men, one of whom is the CEO? I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but based on the evidence from text messages, phone calls, and videos, it's evident that he's engaged in a carnal relationship with your wife. The video call labeled balcony actually captured them in a love-making moment, with him behind her as she leaned over the railing. They seemed unaware they were being recorded. Our high-def video captured close-ups of their faces, and the audio was also recorded. He played the video on the 80-inch screen. There was Kim, my wife, leaning over the railing with her CEO standing behind her. I felt sick to my stomach. I had to step out of the room for a few minutes to compose myself. I returned to the conference room, urging them to continue, as I was now eager to see what my wife had been up to. The video labeled Balcony 2 shows your wife with both Jason and Jonathan simultaneously. I regret having to show you all this, but since they were in public, you can use these videos if you decide to proceed with your divorce and custody battle. I sat there, mouth agape, still finding it difficult to believe it could be Kim. I prayed fervently that it was all just a colossal mistake. David, we've looked into Jonathan Wills and Jason Sinclair. Jonathan has been married for 10 years with 4 young children. Mr. Sinclair has also been married for 25 years with 3 grown children. Text messages reveal that Jonathan introduced Jason into their activities after your wife expressed interest in a triangle of love. It's quite grim, so I'll leave you to review it when you're ready. Here's the folder and a USB drive containing all the files and videos your lawyer will likely need. When I met with my lawyer, she was astonished at the wealth of evidence we had gathered, and couldn't believe there were no prior signs of infidelity at home. Kim continued to play the role of a devoted wife and mother, behaving as if everything was normal. The lawyer outlined various legal avenues based on the evidence I provided, but needed time to explore our options fully, scheduling another appointment for the following week. I instructed her to begin filing the divorce papers as soon as possible. Leaving her office, I felt a pit in my stomach. I knew it was over before these meetings, but watching those videos extinguished any hope of reconciliation. I was still baffled. Who was this woman? Later that evening, after putting the girls to bed, we watched an old movie I found on Netflix called Unfaithful. I heard it was a good film. Let's give it a shot, I suggested, hitting play. Given the film's theme of infidelity, I had prepared for the conversation in advance. During the movie, I casually mentioned a female intern at my office who had been showing interest in me for months. Can you imagine me with another woman? I chuckled. Kim eyed me suspiciously. Really? Who? If I catch you even thinking about being with her, I'm leaving. Got it. You're mine and no one else's, she asserted sternly. Despite my attempts to keep the mood light, she was dead serious. She made it abundantly clear that she wouldn't tolerate any deceit. It was astounding how indignant she was about it, considering her own actions. It was driving me mad. David, why didn't you tell me about her sooner? What's her name? Kim, relax. She's just an intern, a young, flirtatious girl. I've completely ignored her. What about you, Kim? You're the most beautiful girl in your office. Do you mean to tell me no one ever flirts with you? Of course not. They all know I'm married and would never cheat on you. So in our entire marriage, you never entertained the thought of being with another guy? Or did anything like that? Not even a friendly kiss? Have you ever cheated on me? Baby. Her anger flared. Are you kidding me? Did you seriously just ask me that? I constantly express my love for you. I'm always faithful to you, and I couldn't imagine being with another man. You're being ridiculous. I can't believe you'd even think that. I apologized, agreeing with her, and resumed watching the movie. I chuckled to myself, thinking she could have been an actress with how convincing she was. No wonder she excelled at her job. Once things settled down, she leaned against my shoulder again, and I knew it was time. I grabbed my phone, opened the messaging app, and selected a photo of Kim and Jonathan kissing on the dance floor, his hand on her behind. I was studying the photo when she noticed my distraction. What are you doing, David? Why aren't you watching the movie? Because what I'm looking at is more real. What do you mean? I muted the movie and displayed the photo to her. She froze, attempting to speak but failing. I kept my gaze on the photo. Quite the passionate kiss you're giving, Jonathan. Allow me to explain. Where did you get this? You were dining with your buddy Greg Stanton, who spotted you with that guy in the restaurant. He texted me to confirm if it was you or if he was mistaken. Turns out it was indeed you, and he sent me this. Also, gotta say, you look stunning in that dress. I've never seen you in something so revealing. Were you trying to impress your boyfriend? Oh, you have an explanation. I'm all ears, I remarked, placing the phone back on my lap. Baby, we only had one dance and he was intoxicated. After the song ended, he grabbed me and kissed me. What you don't see is that right afterward, I slapped him and caused a scene. I would never allow that to happen. I actually bought this dress for a business dinner, but didn't realize how revealing it was until now. I'm so sorry. I understand. It happens. And that was the only incident? I sensed her wavering confidence and reassured her. Yes, baby, and he won't try it again. The movie resumed, and I reclined quietly, knowing Kim was uneasy. After a few minutes, I retrieved my phone and began playing a video of them sitting on the couch, with his hand under her skirt. She shot me a frightened look. What are you watching now? Remember that night when you called saying you had a long day and were getting ready for bed? Yes, she whispered. It's interesting. I received another text from Greg 2 hours after your call, and this time it was a video. Do you want to see? I asked, hitting play, revealing her and Jonathan kissing while his hands roamed her lovemaking areas that should have been mine alone. I'm eager to hear a new explanation, I remarked, smiling. My anger had dissipated, replaced by contempt and amusement at her response. Oh, David, I'm so sorry. After we hung up, Jonathan called, saying we needed to discuss an issue with a client we were meeting in the morning. He asked me to meet him in the lobby to prepare. I barely recall this video because I had a few drinks and got a bit drunk. You know how I get when I'm intoxicated. I understand the video looks damning, but nothing happened beyond that. I distinctly recall going to my room, telling him to stop, reminding him I was happily married, and leaving. Nothing transpired. You have to trust me. That's part of the issue, kitten, I said, emphasizing the nickname. I noticed her reaction when I said that and continued. The problem is, I've always believed you, yet in the last 20 minutes you've lied to me twice. Can you understand my perspective? I'm here alone, and the woman I love is kissing her boss in 2 photos, dressed in the most revealing outfit I've ever seen her wear. How do you think I feel? Baby David, I love you. This happened 3 months ago. Why didn't you confront me earlier? Honestly? I wanted to see if you'd come clean on your own. I wanted assurance that my wife was as truthful and transparent as we've always been with each other. But now I see where we stand. Are there any other lies? Are you involved with him? Do you love him? Now I was toying with her, relishing her confusion and performance. She began sobbing, repeatedly professing her love for me. Kim, please refrain from telling me how much you love me. I know you love me, and I still love you, but that doesn't change the reality of these photos. I need answers. Are there other deceptions? I added discreetly, hitting the record button on the phone. David, hear me out. Nothing beyond a kiss happened. I admit I kissed him as you saw, but that was the extent of it. Each time I told him to stop. I'm not sure what Greg saw or told you, but you have to trust me, all right? Stop crying, baby. I trust you, however, I'm puzzled by your attire. You never dressed like that for me, nor do you style your hair and makeup that way. Was it for him? You haven't answered my question. Do you have feelings for him? Are you considering leaving me, Kim? Please, I need the truth. The tears resumed. No, David, my love is only for you. I never want to lose you. Nothing happened, and I'm not sure why I dressed like that. It's unlike me. Perhaps it was because other women were dressed similarly, and I wanted to look as good. I'm not certain. I felt a bit insecure. I can understand that, but why didn't you inform me about Jonathan and your interactions? Since nothing truly occurred and I ended it, I didn't want to upset you. He's my superior, and I couldn't risk losing my job. If anything happened, I would have told you immediately. You understand, right? I comforted her with a kiss and embraced her gently, allowing her to cry. This marked the beginning of a month-long scheme to exact my revenge. That night, we made love, and I reveled in her remarkable skills, detached as her spouse and envisioning myself as one of her lovers. I refused to deny myself her body or caution her about anything peculiar. Her acting was commendable, but at that moment, I was indifferent. She was more fervent than ever, attempting to convince me of my exclusive place in her heart. This routine persisted for the following weeks. Each night, her performance was flawless, and I simply savored the spectacle. The next morning, I checked the cloud for any correspondence with Jonathan. Predictably, she didn't disappoint. Oh my God, someone took photos of us at the fair and sent them to David. His friend saw me at the restaurant without David. I'm unsure if he's aware, but the video showed us kissing. Damn, now that you mention it, I recall a man with a phone across from us observing, but I didn't think much of it. How did David react? Nothing. I convinced him nothing happened. I intervened. He's unaware I spent the night in your room. I persuaded him it was drinks-induced and made amends. He's easily swayed. A few kisses and good love-making have always sufficed. Be cautious, baby. We agreed to meet there tomorrow at 1 p.m. as usual. Can't wait. Love you, baby. Love you too, kitten. That marked the final message, and I sat silently pondering it all. Undoubtedly, I felt like the world's biggest fool, yet there's a certain satisfaction in revenge. So, I proceeded with determination. However, I took pleasure in observing Kim's antics and awaited to see how many more lies she would spin. Naturally, my first course of action was to tend to my financial affairs, transferring funds, closing accounts, and the like. I opted to keep my primary Visa card active, but slashed the limit to $2,500 to mitigate potential damage. Since Kim remained clueless about my mounting anger, she never anticipated any changes. I confirmed with my lawyer that since the house was mine pre-marriage, I wouldn't be compelled to vacate upon notification. Naturally, I drafted the infamous email containing videos, texts, and photos that I eventually sent to all her contacts, friends, family, and co-workers. Additionally, I crafted duplicate binders from my personal account for Mrs. Sinclair and Mrs. Wills to share in their anguish. These would be distributed simultaneously with notifications and legal filings. I instructed my lawyer to gear up for public civil lawsuits against both Jonathan, her boss, and Jason, the company's CEO. Given the company's prominence on the East Coast, my lawyer relished the prospect of involving the CEO. We planned to propose a settlement before unveiling the CEO and manager's alleged carnal aggravation of employees. Collaborating with child services attorneys, we aimed for full custody and diligently compiled documents for the investigation. Over the ensuing weeks, everything appeared normal. We tended to the children and spent quality time together daily. Our conversations danced around the elephant in the room, leaving the issue untouched. I'm certain my silence on the matter drove her to the brink of madness. The uncertainty of my thoughts must have been agonizing. To further toy with Kim, I posed a few probing questions. So, Kim, has your boss taken any action against you since the fair? Is there something you'd like to share? Having gleaned insights from her conversations with Jonathan, I marveled at her composure in maintaining her facade of deceit. It was amusing to observe her reaction, and now I could even predict when she was about to lie. She responded calmly, stating that nothing had occurred. It felt odd because both of us were acting as if nothing had transpired, which was true in reality. He remained completely professional, and our interactions were minimal due to our busy schedules. I sat there with a wry smile, still astonished that the woman who bore my children and whom I loved could lie so effortlessly. That night, I released the last remnants of the anger simmering within me. I confronted her and took full advantage of her that night. "Oh my God, David, what got into you? You're behaving so wildly today. I've never seen you so bold and uninhibited." I enjoyed it. What a whirlwind. I thought to myself, I knew this would be the final encounter before all of this turmoil surfaced the next day, and I intended to take everything I could from my soon-to-be ex-wife. That afternoon, the sheriff entered the office of Tricom International and requested to see Mr. Sinclair. Moments later, Sheriff Clark handed him an envelope. "Mr. Sinclair, you've been served." A moment later, Sinclair found himself alone in his spacious office, clutching the envelope with fear gripping his entire being. After reading the complaint repeatedly, he promptly instructed his secretary to summon Jason to his office while simultaneously calling him. Jason, too, had just been served by the same sheriff. He rushed into Sinclair's office, and they both stood there stunned and bewildered. "What the hell? How did this happen, Jason? If my wife catches wind of this, I'm finished. This is on you. You assured me this woman would never leave us. Fix this, Jason, or I swear I'll ruin you and your family. Do you understand?" Sinclair was not one to be trifled with, a ruthless businessman who had clawed his way to the top of the multi-billion-dollar organization and had no intention of backing down. Jonathan hurried out of his office and waited for the elevator to descend to the 12th floor, intending to speak with Kim. As he traversed the hallway toward her office, he noticed the sheriff approaching from the opposite direction, indicating that he had come from Kim's direction. Bursting into her office, he found her seated at her desk, tears streaming down her face. Overwhelmed with emotion, she was unable to speak. David had shattered her world much like she had done to him months earlier. It took her more than an hour to compose herself enough to articulate her thoughts. "Oh, what in the world happened? Or how did he find out about everything?" "What do you mean? I've just been served with divorce papers." "What do you mean by us? Sinclair and I are also being sued and facing a civil lawsuit for our actions. We're unsure of the evidence against us, but there must be more than just the 2 images you saw. You need to convince David to back off, or else Sinclair will ruin us and my family." "Oh my God, this is terrible. It's awful. You must go to him and make him see reason. Do whatever it takes to halt this. Head home and address this. Call me tonight if you can and keep me informed." Trembling, Kim packed her belongings and drove home. Her beloved husband and the father of her children was divorcing her. She didn't want a divorce, and genuinely loved David. However, she found herself unable to resist the allure of carnal excitement. She needed to make David understand that she couldn't bear to lose him over this. Returning to an empty house, she found the girls were at David's sister's house, as they were every afternoon while they both worked. She phoned David's sister, requesting she keep the children overnight. Without inquiring further, Katie gladly agreed to take care of the girls for the night. Kim showered, styled her hair and makeup, and anxiously awaited David's return from work. At 6, she heard the garage door open and nervously anticipated his entrance into the house. "Hi, Kim. Didn't expect to see you tonight. Thought you'd be with Jonathan. Oh, wait, he's married with kids. This might get awkward." "David, please, let's talk." She took his hand and seated him beside her on the sofa. Despite the circumstances, she appeared surprisingly composed and more pleasant than usual when greeting him. Expecting this, he played along. "David, as you already know, I was served today, but do you realize I don't want a divorce? I need you and love you. I won't sign these papers. Jonathan means nothing to me. Yes, we had lovemaking, but it wasn't love. I just needed it, and I'm truly sorry. I'll never do it again, I promise." "Oh, you promise? Guess I can trust you now." "Sure, let's forget everything and get back to normal," I said, smiling lovingly. Kim embraced me and planted a kiss. "Thank you, baby. I love you so much. I'm grateful you forgive me and understand. I won't lie to you again." Surprised, I was certain she caught my sarcasm. Pulling away, I gently pushed her aside. "You're delusional. I can't trust you anymore. After all your lies and deceit, there's nothing left. I gave you many chances, but you kept lying, deceiving me, and ruining our lives. I know all about your daily hotel rendezvous with your bosses. Did you really think I'd take you back after all this? Have you even considered the damage you're causing to the girls? I can't turn a blind eye to this." "But you can, and why go after Sinclair and Jonathan? Well, your partners in crime are also CEOs of a multi-billion-dollar company. Once I'm out of here, I'll need money to properly support the girls since they're partly responsible for destroying our marriage and my life. I'll destroy them too. I plan to dismantle their family, hit them financially, and use them the way they used you." Kim had never witnessed David express himself in such a manner, nor had she seen him so intensely angry and focused. The seriousness of the situation finally struck her, and she realized she had lost control over both the situation and her husband. All she could do now was plead. With tears streaming down her cheeks, she knelt before David, clutching his legs and begging for forgiveness. Though David felt a pang of sympathy for her, his anger overpowered any compassion, and he lifted her onto the sofa, speaking to her in a gentle tone as if she were a child. David laid out a plan. "Listen, Kim, pack your bag and stay at your mom's for a few nights. Get a lawyer, then we can arrange a meeting to discuss everything. In the meantime, a word to the wise, I suggest you stay away from Jason and Jonathan. Things are about to get messy." Later that evening at her mom's, she explained that she and David had a disagreement, and she needed to stay with her for a while. At 11 p.m., she called Jonathan on his cell. Jonathan quickly looped in Jason on a three-way call. "Jason, are you here? Kim, are you there?" Yes, we are here," Sinclair initiated the conversation. "So Kim, did you manage to persuade him to give up the lawsuits and the divorce?" "No. In fact, he kicked me out and warned me to be careful because it could lead to trouble." Sinclair shouted into the phone, "Jesus Christ, Jonathan, what have you done, Kim, you freaking prick? I swear I will have you eliminated if my family finds out about this. I don't care what you do, but make it stop." Kim cried, "I can't do anything. He's out of control and won't listen to anything I say. He doesn't even answer my calls or texts." Sinclair spoke up, "Jonathan, you need to fix this. Make an appointment with David and have him meet us at a bar somewhere. Anything loud, and the noisier the better. Kim, you will be there too, and ask him to drop the lawsuit in front of us. If he says no, then Jonathan and I will explain how damaging it will be for him and his family if he doesn't back down. I have people tasked with fixing things like this, and I won't hesitate to use them to keep this show from turning into complete crap. Jonathan, do you understand what you need to do?" "Yes, Mr. Sinclair." "Kim, you know what you have to do, right?" "Yes, Mr. Sinclair." "Do it and make it happen tomorrow afternoon. We don't have time to waste." Sinclair disappeared. Kim and Jonathan hung up after a few minutes, considering the situation. That night, upon hearing the call, David wasn't surprised by their desperation and devised his own plan. As expected, Jonathan called the next morning to arrange a settlement meeting. They agreed to meet at 6 p.m. in a courtyard. At 4 p.m., David was at his private investigator's office preparing for the meeting. They utilized cutting-edge technology with noise cancellation to capture clear sound even in noisy environments. A private investigator would also be present to film the meeting as evidence. David arrived at 6:15, purposefully keeping them waiting and allowing time for the private investigator to set up his video camera. Upon seeing Kim, he approached the group. "Kim, I'm surprised to see you here with your partners, but I suppose we know where your allegiances lie. Gentlemen, what brings us together? Why are we here?" Sinclair spoke up. "David, I'm Jason Sinclair, and I requested this meeting." "Sinclair, you look quite different in person. These videos don't capture your essence. Can't say it's a pleasure to meet you." Indeed, that's precisely why we're here. This is Jonathan Wills. Jonathan, the man who slept with my wife and wrecked my marriage. Can't say it's a pleasure to meet any of you. Sinclair interjected, I understand your anger. If I were in your shoes, I'm not sure how I'd react, but we need to discuss something. Follow me. What's on your mind? Asked David. We want you to drop the lawsuits against me, Jonathan, and the company. Funny, that's all? Oh no, sorry, can't do that. Someone has to pay for taking away the most important thing in my life, David stated, looking at Kim, the only woman I've ever loved and the mother of my children. Kim began to cry, realizing the magnitude of the damage she had caused. What will it take for you to end this and take Kim back? Name your price. Firstly, no amount of money could ever make me take her back. She betrayed my love, trust, and our children's lives for a fling with you two. It's out of the question. I'll drop the civil and corporate cases under two conditions. Firstly, I want $5 million compensation. Secondly, I want to meet both your wives, and Kim must fully admit her actions. If you agree to these conditions, I'll end the legal proceedings. Go to hell, David. I'll offer you 100 grand and you'll sign an agreement to keep quiet about this forever, Sinclair whispered. I won't let my family suffer if they find out, David. I'll end you. Kim told us your daily routine, making you vanish would be easy. Let's try again. David was surprised, but smiled and took a sip of his drink. Well, I'll reduce the amount to $4 million, but your families must know what you did. Sinclair was stunned. David, you're sealing your fate. Think it over. Drop the charges and take Kim back. It was just a fling. We can resolve this. David grabbed his phone and sent 2 text messages. Then he accessed his email and dispatched the prearranged email containing all the videos and images. Texts had now been distributed to all of Kim's friends, family, and colleagues. The 2 messages he sent were to the criers stationed outside Jason and Jonathan's residences, awaiting his directives. The instructions were simple: deliver the package. Within moments, Mrs. Sinclair and Mrs. Wills possessed duplicate 3-ring binders containing comprehensive evidence of their husband's affair, including photos, videos, messages, phone logs, and other incriminating evidence. Sinclair, growing increasingly irate due to David's apparent indifference, erupted in anger. What the hell, David? I'm speaking to you. What's your response? Are you dropping the charges? To which David retorted, my answer to you, Jason, Jonathan, and my wife is, go to hell. Just then, the phones of both Jason and Jonathan began to ring. It was their wives on the line. Sinclair's face reddened, shooting David a glare of fury. Jonathan, visibly shaken, even teared up. Kim, bewildered, questioned David about the commotion. His response was cryptic. Check your email in a few minutes, and I believe you'll understand. After ending the call with his wife, Sinclair pointed an accusatory finger at David. You're dead, David. I'll slit your throat and watch you die like a dog. With that threat, he stormed out of the bar. Jonathan, confronting David, uttered a plaintive, Why? Why would you do this to me? David was astounded by the question. Seriously? You've been using my wife, the love of my life and the mother of my twin girls, every day for the past 6 months, arranging trysts with Sinclair, and you're surprised someone would retaliate? Everything I sent to your sweet wife was for her sake, to expose what a depraved beast of prey you are and how you've destroyed countless lives. Kim's phone began ringing as her sister, brother, and aunt called her shortly afterward. They all watched the videos and photos and had numerous questions. Initially, Kim denied knowledge of the situation, but then checked her email to see what I had sent. Her jaw dropped, and she shot me an angry look. How could you do this to me? You've made it too easy, darling. I truly love you, but it's over between us. After I hand this audio recording of the meeting to the authorities and social services, my lawyer is confident I'll secure full custody of the girls, and you'll be fortunate to evade jail time. I'm sorry, but you must face the consequences of your actions. To prevent them from becoming public knowledge, Tricom resolved the lawsuit by compensating David Hunter with $2 million. Jason Sinclair was ousted as CEO and terminated without severance due to breaching the morals clause in his contract. He suffered losses exceeding $10 million in stock options and forfeited a $5 million severance package. Sinclair also received a 5-year sentence for conspiracy to commit homicide and other charges. His wife divorced him while he was incarcerated and financially decimated him. Upon investigation of his business dealings, he exited prison destitute, bereft of family, and homeless. This news provided David with some solace, and he even cracked a smile for the first time in months. Mrs. Wills also divorced Jonathan, leaving him without money, shelter, child support, or half of his income in alimony. He was fined $1 million in a civil trial for conspiracy, infidelity, and loss of affection. Following his job loss, Jonathan resorted to working as a day laborer. Learning of Jonathan's downfall further gratified David, who took pleasure in Jonathan's subsequent bankruptcy and life under an overpass among day workers. Kim received a 5-year prison sentence, but with David's assistance, it was commuted to 1 year of house arrest, followed by 4 years of probation for conspiracy. She lost custody of the children, and David gained full custody. Despite her efforts, she failed to secure a divorce due to the evidence and the nature of the crime. With the house belonging to David, she found herself homeless upon termination. She earned the same amount as David, so no child support was necessary. Kim spiraled into a profound depression and now resides in her mother's basement. Her family turned against her for her actions, resulting in the loss of her visitation rights with her children. The email I sent with the attached videos and photos exposed a dark side of Kim that no one had recognized before. This had the intended effect, completely shattering the support network within the Kim family. Forgiveness seems unattainable for Kim, even from herself. She relies on medication following 3 self-destruction attempts and has been in and out of mental hospitals for the past 6 months, struggling to come to terms with the lives she contributed to destroying. David now dedicates all his time to his daughters. Being free from work post-divorce allows him to focus entirely on raising his children. Since Kim's self-destruction attempt, the girls have not seen their mother, but they receive ample support from David's sister and mother. They will recover from this traumatic ordeal without any lasting effects. While revenge brought a fleeting sense of satisfaction, it cannot fully heal David's wounds. He still harbors love and forgiveness for Kim, but the memory of her betrayal remains etched in his mind. Taking care of his daughters keeps him occupied and wards off loneliness. However, due to the betrayal, lies, and deceit, it will take years before David can open his heart to love and trust again. It's remarkable how seemingly insignificant actions can have profound effects on numerous lives. Caution is advised.
Welcome back to the Cheating Tales Lab. First of all, a huge thank you for helping us reach 5,000 subscribers. Thank you all for your amazing support. To celebrate, we're launching our second channel, Infidelity Tales Lab, where you'll get 1-day early access to all our stories plus exclusive, original cheating wife stories you won't find anywhere else. You can subscribe now by clicking the link in the description or the pinned comment, or simply search for Infidelity Tales Lab on YouTube. Don't miss out. Subscribe and listen to exclusive stories. You won't regret subscribing. Now let's begin the story. Ryan Butler's shoes clicked against the pavement as he approached his house, briefcase in hand. The setting sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawn, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming jasmine. After a grueling week-long business trip, all Ryan wanted was to embrace his wife Hannah and relax in the comfort of their home. As he neared the front door, Hannah's voice drifted through an open window. Ryan paused, his hand hovering over the doorknob. Something in her tone made him hesitate. After he inherits her parents' estate, I'll push for a divorce. I just need that money first. He's too stupid to see it coming. The words sliced through the air like a knife, shattering Ryan's world in an instant. He recognized the other voice as Whitney, Hannah's best friend. Blood roared in his ears as his mind raced, connecting dots he'd previously ignored. Late nights at work that left Hannah smelling of unfamiliar cologne. Mysterious text messages that made her smile secretively. Her sudden, pressing interest in his family's finances. It all made sickening sense now. Ryan's jaw clenched, his grip tightening on his briefcase until his knuckles turned white. Years of love and trust crumbled around him, replaced by a cold, burning rage. But as quickly as the anger flared, it was tempered by something else, determination. Taking a deep breath, Ryan forced his features into a mask of normalcy. He wouldn't give Hannah the satisfaction of knowing she blindsided him. No, he'd play her game, and he'd win. With deliberate casualness, Ryan opened the front door. "Honey, I'm home," he called out, his voice betraying none of the turmoil within. Hannah appeared in the hallway, her golden hair perfectly styled and her smile dazzling. To anyone else, she would have looked like the picture of a devoted wife. But now, Ryan saw through the facade to the predator beneath. "Ryan, you're back early," Hannah exclaimed, crossing the room to plant a kiss on his cheek. The gesture, once cherished, now felt like poison against his skin. "Thought I'd surprise you," Ryan replied, forcing a smile. Is that Whitney I hear? Hannah's eyes flickered with something. Surprise? Worry? Before her mask slipped back into place. Yes, she just stopped by for a chat. Whitney, come say hello. As Whitney entered the room, her forced smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Ryan noticed the way she glanced at Hannah, a silent exchange passing between them. Welcome home, Ryan, Whitney said, her voice overly cheerful. How was your trip? Productive, Ryan answered, studying her carefully. How long had she been complicit in Hannah's deception? But I'm glad to be back. Nothing beats home, right? Hannah laughed, a tinkling sound that now grated on Ryan's nerves. Of course, darling. Why don't you go freshen up? I'll start on dinner. Ryan nodded, heading upstairs to the bedroom. As he set down his briefcase, he could hear Hannah and Whitney's hushed voices from below. No doubt they were scrambling to cover their tracks. That night, as Hannah slept beside him, Ryan lay awake, his mind churning. The woman he'd loved, the life he'd built, it had all been a lie. But two could play at deception. With practiced stealth, Ryan slipped out of bed and retrieved Hannah's phone from her purse. Years of marriage had made him privy to her password, a fact she'd clearly overlooked in her scheming. The screen illuminated, casting an eerie glow in the darkened room. Ryan's fingers moved swiftly, navigating through messages and emails. What he found made his stomach churn. A trove of incriminating messages between Hannah and Bobby Barnard filled the screen. Bobby, the smooth-talking real estate agent Ryan had considered a friend. Their exchanges were filled with passionate declarations, clandestine meeting plans, and worst of all, discussions of their future together. A future built on the ruins of Ryan's life. Ryan's free hand clenched into a fist, his nails digging into his palm. The betrayal cut deep, but he forced himself to keep reading. Each message was a weapon, ammunition for the battle to come. As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, Ryan replaced the phone exactly as he'd found it. He slipped back into bed, his mind racing with plans. Hannah stirred beside him, mumbling in her sleep. Once, he would have pulled her close. Now, her touch made his skin crawl. Ryan closed his eyes, feigning sleep. But inside, a fire had been lit. Hannah and Bobby had declared war, and he intended to emerge victorious. The following day, Ryan stood on his parents' front porch, his knuckles poised to knock. The quaint suburban home looked much as it always had. His mother's prized roses blooming in the front garden, his father's vintage Chevy parked in the driveway. But now, even this familiar setting felt tainted by Hannah's machinations. Taking a steadying breath, Ryan rapped on the door. Moments later, it swung open to reveal his mother, Eleanor Butler. Her face lit up at the sight of him, but Ryan couldn't help noticing the new lines around her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands. "Ryan, what a lovely surprise," Eleanor exclaimed, pulling him into a hug. Come in, come in. Your father will be so pleased to see you." As Ryan followed her into the living room, he took in the subtle signs of his parents' declining health. The new handrails along the walls, the prescribed pill bottles lined up on the kitchen counter. His heart clenched, knowing Hannah had taken advantage of their vulnerability. George Butler sat in his favorite armchair, a thick blanket draped over his legs despite the warm weather. He looked up as Ryan entered, his eyes brightening with recognition. "There's my boy," George said, his voice weaker than Ryan remembered. "To what do we owe this visit?" Ryan plastered on a smile, taking a seat across from his father. "Just thought I'd check in, see how you both are doing. I've been so caught up with work lately, I feel like I've been neglecting you." Eleanor patted his hand. "Nonsense, dear. We know how busy you are. Besides, Hannah's been so helpful lately. She visits often, helps with the groceries, even assisted us with some financial paperwork." Ryan's jaw tightened at the mention of Hannah's name, but he maintained his composure. "Oh, that's thoughtful of her. What kind of paperwork?" George waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, just some updates to the will and such. Hannah mentioned it might be wise to review things, given our health situation. She's been a godsend, really." The pieces clicked into place, and Ryan felt a surge of anger. Hannah had manipulated his parents into changing their will, likely leaving everything to her instead of Ryan. The sheer audacity of her betrayal left him momentarily speechless. Swallowing hard, Ryan leaned forward. Dad, Mom, I think it might be a good idea for us to visit your lawyer together. Just to make sure everything's in order. Eleanor looked concerned. Is something wrong, dear? Ryan shook his head, forcing a reassuring smile. Not at all. I just want to make sure all your affairs are in order, given your health concerns. It would give me peace of mind. After a moment's hesitation, George nodded. That's probably wise, son. We can go tomorrow if you're free. Perfect, Ryan said, already formulating his plan. I'll pick you up in the morning. The next day, Ryan sat beside his parents in the austere office of Jerome Hawkins, the family's longtime lawyer. The elderly attorney peered at them over his wire-rimmed glasses, a look of concern etched on his face. Now, Mr. and Mrs. Butler, Hawkins began. I understand you wish to review the changes made to your will last month? George nodded. Yes, that's right. Our daughter-in-law, Hannah, suggested some updates. Ryan leaned forward. Mr. Hawkins, could you please outline those changes for us? As the lawyer detailed the alterations, Ryan watched the color drain from his parents' faces. The entire estate, the house, savings, even his father's beloved Chevy, had been left to Hannah, with Ryan receiving only a token sum. But that can't be right, Eleanor stammered, looking at George in confusion. We would never cut Ryan out like that. Ryan gently took his mother's hand. It's okay, Mom. I think Hannah might have misrepresented some things when she helped you with this. George's face hardened, a glimpse of his former strength shining through. Hawkins, I want these changes reversed immediately. Everything goes back to Ryan, as we originally intended. As the lawyer busied himself with the paperwork, he shot Ryan a knowing look. Mr. Butler, Ryan, may I have a word in private? Once they were alone, Hawkins leaned in close. I've known your family for years, son. Something doesn't smell right about all this. You do well to protect yourself. Ryan nodded grimly. I intend to, Mr. Hawkins. I intend to. The offices of Blackstone Investigations stood in stark contrast to Ryan's usual haunts, where his world was one of sleek modernity and architectural precision. This place exuded an air of gritty determination. The faded lettering on the frosted glass door read, Maxwell King, Private Investigator. Ryan straightened his tie before knocking. A gruff voice called out, Enter. Inside, he found a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a noir film. Maxwell King was all sharp angles and shrewd eyes, his desk cluttered with files and a half-empty bottle of whiskey. Mr. Butler, King said, gesturing to a chair. What can I do for you? Ryan sat, his posture rigid. I need evidence of my wife's infidelity. Photos, recordings, anything that'll hold up in court. King's eyebrow arched. Divorce case, eh? Nasty business. You have no idea, Ryan muttered. He slid a folder across the desk. This is everything I know about her affair. Locations, times, the other man's information. I need concrete proof, and I need it fast. The investigator leafed through the documents, letting out a low whistle. Your wife's not just cheating. This looks like a full-blown conspiracy. Ryan's jaw clenched. Exactly. That's why I need the best. Money is no object. A slow smile spread across King's face. Well then, Mr. Butler, let's get to work. As Ryan left the office, his phone buzzed. A message from his project manager. Client meeting in 30. Harcourt account. Crucial. Ryan cursed under his breath. With everything happening in his personal life, he'd almost forgotten about the Harcourt project, a multi-million-dollar development that could make or break his career. Pushing thoughts of Hannah aside, Ryan threw himself into work. The following weeks became a delicate balancing act. By day, he was the consummate professional, wowing clients with innovative designs and attention to detail. By night, he meticulously built his case against Hannah. The Harcourt project consumed his days. Ryan poured every ounce of his creativity and expertise into the designs, impressing the clients with his dedication. In client meetings, he was focused and charismatic, never letting on that his personal life was in shambles. I've never seen work like this, Mr. Harcourt said during one presentation, his eyes wide as he examined the 3D renderings. It's like you've read my mind, Butler. Ryan allowed himself a small smile. I believe in fully understanding my client's visions, Mr. Harcourt. This project isn't just a job for me. It's a passion. As he drove home that evening, Ryan felt a flicker of his old confidence. He may have been blindsided in his personal life, but professionally, he was still at the top of his game. The moment he walked through the front door, however, reality came crashing back. Hannah was waiting for him, a concerned look plastered on her face. "Darling, you've been working so hard lately," she cooed, running a hand down his arm. "I've barely seen you. Is everything all right?" Ryan forced himself to lean into her touch, suppressing a shudder. "Just a big project, that's all. Nothing to worry about." Hannah's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. "Well, I think you need a break. I've arranged a dinner tomorrow night with Bobby and Whitney. A nice, friendly gathering to help you unwind." For a moment, Ryan marveled at her audacity. Dinner with her lover and accomplice? But he quickly schooled his features into a grateful smile. "That sounds wonderful, honey. Thank you for thinking of me." As Hannah turned away, satisfied, Ryan allowed himself a grim smile. Little did she know, she just handed him the perfect opportunity. The next evening, Ryan found himself seated across from Bobby Barnard at an upscale restaurant. The real estate agent was every bit as smooth in person as he was in Hannah's messages, all white teeth and practiced charm. "Ryan, my man," Bobby exclaimed, clapping him on the shoulder. "It's been too long. How's work treating you?" Ryan plastered on a smile, acutely aware of the recording device hidden in his jacket pocket. "Can't complain. How about you, Bobby? Any exciting deals in the works?" Bobby's eyes lit up, his ego clearly unable to resist the bait. "Oh, you know me. Always got something cooking. In fact, I've got some insider knowledge on a few prime properties coming to market soon." As Bobby launched into a detailed account of his allegedly exclusive real estate leads, Ryan noticed Hannah shooting warning glances at her lover. But Bobby, caught up in his own perceived brilliance, failed to notice. Whitney, for her part, seemed increasingly uncomfortable as the evening wore on. She laughed too loudly at Bobby's jokes and kept glancing nervously between Hannah and Ryan. As the meal progressed, Ryan played his role to perfection, the oblivious, trusting husband. He laughed at Bobby's jokes, complimented Hannah's choice of restaurant, and skillfully steered the conversation towards topics that would incriminate the adulterous couple. By the time dessert arrived, Ryan had a wealth of recorded evidence, from Bobby's boasts about insider trading to Hannah's thinly veiled references to their affair. As he raised his glass in a toast, Ryan allowed himself to feel a glimmer of satisfaction. The game was far from over, but he'd just scored a major victory. Hannah and Bobby thought they were playing chess, but they'd find out soon enough that Ryan was several moves ahead. The sleek office of Jake Mason, renowned divorce attorney, exuded an air of calculated ruthlessness. Ryan Butler sat across from Mason, his posture rigid and eyes sharp. The lawyer's reputation for leaving spouses penniless preceded him, and that's exactly what Ryan needed. Mason leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "So, Mr. Butler, you want to leave your wife with nothing? I can arrange that, but I need to know everything." Ryan nodded, his voice steady. "Hannah's been planning this for years. She manipulated my parents, tried to steal my inheritance, and she's having an affair with Bobby Barnard, the real estate agent." Mason's eyebrow arched. "Interesting. What evidence do you have?" Ryan produced a flash drive. "Recordings, text messages, financial records. But there's more. I've discovered Hannah's been siphoning money from our joint accounts." Mason's eyes glinted with interest. "Now we're talking. How much?" "Thousands, possibly more. I need your help to track it all down." The lawyer nodded, a predatory smile spreading across his face. "Leave it to me, Mr. Butler. We'll make sure Hannah regrets the day she crossed you." Over the next few weeks, Ryan and Mason meticulously built their case. Using his connections, Ryan traced the money trail, uncovering a web of deceit that ran deeper than he'd imagined. One evening, as Ryan pored over financial documents in his home office, a name caught his eye: Butler and Barnard Architects. His blood ran cold as he realized the full extent of Hannah and Bobby's betrayal. They weren't just planning to take his money. They were going to steal his entire career. The documents detailed plans for a rival architecture firm, using Ryan's stolen designs and client list. Ryan's hands clenched, crumpling the paper. The audacity of their scheme fueled his resolve. He would not only protect himself but destroy their plans entirely. At home, Ryan maintained a facade of normalcy. He smiled at Hannah, engaged in small talk, all while his mind cataloged every interaction. Hidden cameras, installed discreetly throughout the house, captured Hannah's clandestine meetings with Bobby. Hannah sauntered into the kitchen one evening, her smile sickly sweet. "Darling, I was thinking we should redecorate the living room. What do you think?" Ryan looked up from his laptop, his face a mask of casual interest. "Sounds great, honey. Whatever you think is best." As Hannah launched into her ideas, Ryan nodded along, all while the camera hidden in the vase on the counter recorded her every word. Later, he would review the footage, noting any slips or inconsistencies in her behavior. The Butler family home, once a sanctuary of warmth and love, now felt like a battlefield to Ryan. As he approached the front door, steeling himself for the confrontation ahead, he couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness for what had been lost. Kimberly, his younger sister, opened the door. Her usual warm smile was replaced by a cool, almost hostile expression. "Ryan, what are you doing here?" Ryan stepped inside, his voice level. "We need to talk, Kim. It's important." In the living room, tension crackled in the air. Kimberly stood with her arms crossed, defiance written across her face. "If you're here to make excuses for how you've been treating Hannah, save it. She's told me everything." Ryan's jaw clenched, but he kept his composure. "Has she? And what exactly has she told you?" "That you're neglectful, cruel even. That you're trying to cut her out of the family inheritance." "How could you, Ryan? After everything she's done for Mom and Dad." For a moment, Ryan marveled at Hannah's ability to spin such elaborate lies. Then, without a word, he placed a folder on the coffee table between them. "What's this?" Kimberly asked, suspicion lacing her voice. "The truth," Ryan replied simply. "Everything Hannah's been hiding. Her affair with Bobby, her attempts to manipulate our parents, the money she's been stealing. It's all there." Kimberly's hand trembled as she reached for the folder. As she read, her face paled, eyes widening in shock and disbelief. This can't be true," she whispered. "I'm afraid it is, Kim. Hannah's been playing us all." Tears welled in Kimberly's eyes as the full weight of the deception hit her. "Oh God, Ryan. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I've been helping her, telling her about the family finances, about your work schedule. I thought I was helping you both." Ryan moved to sit beside his sister, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "It's not your fault, Kim. Hannah fooled all of us. But now, I need your help to make this right." Kimberly looked up, determination replacing the shock in her eyes. "Anything. What do you need me to do?" As Ryan outlined his plan, Kimberly listened intently, her loyalty to her brother fully restored. Together, they would gather more evidence, strengthening the case against Hannah and Bobby. Meanwhile, at work, Ryan faced a new challenge. Client meetings were mysteriously canceled, crucial documents went missing, and rumors began to circulate about his reliability. Ryan sat in his office, frustration mounting as he received yet another email about a postponed meeting. The pieces clicked into place. This had Bobby written all over it. Determination set in. Ryan wouldn't let these petty sabotage attempts derail him. He reached for his phone, dialing a client whose meeting had been canceled. "Mr. Harcourt? Ryan Butler here. I wanted to personally apologize for any confusion regarding our meeting." "What's that? You never canceled? I see. Well, I'm glad I called. How about we meet for dinner tonight to discuss the project?" One by one, Ryan reached out to his clients, smoothing over misunderstandings and reaffirming his commitment to their projects. He worked late into the night, recreating lost documents and refining designs. Each attempt to undermine him only strengthened Ryan's resolve. He would not only survive this challenge but emerge stronger, leaving Hannah and Bobby's schemes in ruins. The real estate office was quiet as Ryan signed the final papers. The sale of their house, his house now, was complete, The funds safely transferred to a secure account Hannah couldn't touch. The realtor, a colleague of Bobby's, looked uncomfortable, clearly aware of the situation but bound by professional discretion. "Congratulations, Mr. Butler," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "Is there anything else you need?" Ryan stood, his face impassive. "No, thank you. I think that covers everything." As he left the office, Ryan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Another piece of the puzzle was in place. He pulled out his phone, dialing his bank. "This is Ryan Butler. I need to close all joint accounts immediately." "Yes, I understand the implications. Please proceed." Back at the house, Hannah was waiting, a look of forced concern on her face. "Ryan, darling, we need to talk. You've been so distant lately. I'm worried about you." Ryan steeled himself, plastering on a weary smile. "I'm sorry, Hannah. Work's been stressful. Maybe you're right, we should talk." Hannah's eyes lit up, a predatory gleam that Ryan now recognized all too well. "I've been thinking. We both need a break. How about a romantic getaway? Just the two of us?" For a moment, Ryan marveled at her audacity. Even now, she was trying to manipulate him, to delay the inevitable. But two could play at that game. "That sounds wonderful, honey. Where did you have in mind?" As Hannah launched into her plans for their trip, Ryan nodded along, all while mentally preparing for the final act of this charade. Little did Hannah know, this romantic getaway would be the last nail in the coffin of their marriage. The resort was picturesque, all crystal-clear waters and pristine beaches. Hannah played the role of the doting wife to perfection, hanging on Ryan's every word, arranging romantic dinners, and showering him with affection. Ryan reciprocated, forcing himself to smile, to touch her, all while silently counting down the hours. He knew the truth. This was Hannah's last-ditch effort to secure her claim on his inheritance. On their third night, as they sat on their private balcony watching the sunset, Ryan's phone buzzed. The message he'd been dreading and expecting in equal measure had arrived. Ryan's face paled as he read the text, his hands shaking slightly. Hannah, ever the opportunist, pounced. "Ryan? What's wrong? Has something happened?" He looked up, meeting her eyes. It's my parents. They're gone. Passed away in their sleep last night." For a split second, Hannah's mask slipped. A flash of triumph, quickly replaced by a poor facsimile of grief. "Oh, Ryan, I'm so sorry. How awful." As she moved to embrace him, Ryan caught the gleam in her eyes. There was no sadness there, no compassion, only barely concealed greed. In that moment, any lingering doubt Ryan might have harbored evaporated. Hannah had never loved him. He was nothing but a means to an end, a path to wealth and status. Ryan allowed himself to be held, his mind racing. The endgame was approaching. Soon, very soon, Hannah would learn the true cost of her betrayal. As they packed to return home, ostensibly to plan the funeral, Ryan watched Hannah flit about the room. She was practically vibrating with poorly concealed excitement, no doubt already planning how to spend her ill-gotten gains. "We should call the lawyer as soon as we get back," Hannah said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Make sure everything's in order with the will. You shouldn't have to worry about such things at a time like this." Ryan nodded, his face a mask of grief. "You're right. Thank you for thinking of everything, Hannah. I don't know what I'd do without you." The irony of his words was not lost on Ryan. Indeed, Hannah would soon learn exactly what life without him would be like, and it would be nothing like she'd planned. The Butler residence stood silent as Ryan pulled into the driveway. The facade of the house, once a symbol of his shared life with Hannah, now seemed like a hollow shell. He stepped out of the car, briefcase in hand, his face a mask of grim determination. Inside, Hannah bustled about, her voice carrying from the kitchen. "Ryan, is that you? I've been thinking about the funeral arrangements. We should probably—" Her words cut off abruptly as Ryan entered the room. He stood in the doorway, his posture rigid, eyes cold. In his hand, he held a thick envelope. Hannah's brow furrowed. "What's that?" Without a word, Ryan placed the envelope on the kitchen counter and slid it towards her. Hannah's manicured fingers trembled slightly as she opened it, her eyes widening as she scanned the contents. "Divorce papers?" Her voice rose, incredulous. What is this, Ryan? Some kind of sick joke? Ryan's voice was steady, devoid of emotion. No joke, Hannah. I know everything. The color drained from Hannah's face, quickly replaced by a flush of anger. Everything? What are you talking about? The affair with Bobby. The manipulation of my parents. Your plans to steal my inheritance, my clients, my entire career. Ryan's words were measured, each one landing like a blow. Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Hannah's shock quickly morphed into rage. She lunged forward, her perfectly manicured nails clawing at the air between them. You can't do this to me. After everything I've done for you, for this family. Ryan stood his ground, unflinching in the face of her fury. Everything you've done? You mean lie, cheat, and steal? Hannah's tactics shifted, her voice taking on a pleading tone. Ryan, please. You don't understand. I love you. We can work this out. But Ryan remained unmoved, his resolve unshakable. Save it, Hannah. Your act might have worked before, but not anymore. It's over. Realizing the gravity of her situation, Hannah's demeanor changed once again. Her eyes narrowed, voice dropping to a menacing hiss. You'll regret this, Ryan. I'll ruin you. By the time I'm done, you'll have nothing left. Ryan met her gaze, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I don't think so, Hannah. You see, I've been preparing for this moment for quite some time. Every lie, every manipulation, every secret meeting with Bobby. I have it all documented. Hannah's face paled. She stumbled backward, groping for her phone on the counter. Her fingers shook as she dialed, her voice frantic when the call connected. Bobby? Bobby, you need to come over right now. Ryan knows. He knows everything. Minutes later, the sound of screeching tires announced Bobby's arrival. He burst through the front door, his usual smooth demeanor replaced by barely contained panic. What's going on? Bobby demanded, looking between Hannah and Ryan. What does he know? Ryan calmly retrieved a small device from his pocket. With the press of a button, Bobby's own voice filled the room. Once we get control of Ryan's firm, we'll have access to all his clients. Between that and Hannah's inheritance, we'll be set for life. That idiot won't know what hit him. Bobby's arrogance crumbled, replaced by fear. He looked at Hannah, then back at Ryan, his mouth opening and closing wordlessly. Ryan's voice was cold. I suggest you both talk to your lawyers. You're going to need them. As Hannah and Bobby stood shell-shocked, Ryan gathered his things. At the door, he paused, looking back at the two people who had betrayed him so deeply. I'll be staying elsewhere until the divorce is finalized. I suggest you do the same, Hannah. This house no longer belongs to either of us. With that, Ryan walked out, leaving Hannah and Bobby to face the wreckage of their failed scheme. The courthouse buzzed with activity as Ryan strode through the main entrance. His lawyer, Jake Mason, fell into step beside him, briefcase swinging. Ready for this? Mason asked, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Ryan nodded, his jaw set. More than ready. Let's end this. Inside the courtroom, Hannah and Bobby sat with their legal team, both looking significantly less polished than usual. Hannah's designer outfit couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes, while Bobby's usual confident smirk was nowhere to be seen. As the proceedings began, Hannah and Bobby's lawyers attempted to paint Ryan as the villain. They spun tales of neglect and emotional abuse, portraying Hannah as a devoted wife driven to desperation by her husband's cruelty. But Ryan and Mason were prepared. With meticulous precision, they dismantled each lie, presenting irrefutable evidence of Hannah and Bobby's deceit. Mason called their first witness, Kimberly, Ryan's sister. As she took the stand, Hannah's face paled. Kimberly's voice was steady as she recounted Hannah's manipulation. She told me Ryan was cruel, that he was trying to cut her out of the family. I believed her. I even helped her, telling her about our family finances. But it was all a lie. Hannah's lawyer attempted to discredit Kimberly, but her testimony stood firm. Next came a surprise witness, Whitney, Hannah's former best friend. Whitney avoided Hannah's accusatory glare as she spoke. I can't keep quiet anymore. Hannah and Bobby have been planning this for years. They were going to take everything from Ryan. his money, his business, everything. As witness after witness corroborated Ryan's claims, Hannah and Bobby's united front began to crumble. They exchanged accusatory glances, each clearly considering how to save themselves at the other's expense. The final blow came when Mason presented financial records showing how Hannah had siphoned money from joint accounts, along with detailed plans for the rival architecture firm she and Bobby had intended to start using Ryan's stolen designs. Hannah's composure finally broke. She stood up, pointing at Bobby. "It was his idea. He convinced me to do it. I never wanted to hurt Ryan." Bobby, his face red with anger, shouted back, "Don't try to pin this on me. You were the one who came up with the plan to manipulate his parents." The judge called for order as Hannah and Bobby continued to hurl accusations at each other, their relationship disintegrating in front of the entire courtroom. Through it all, Ryan sat calmly, his face impassive. He had known this moment would come, when the true nature of Hannah and Bobby's relationship would be revealed. As the day's proceedings came to a close, the judge's words hung in the air. "In light of the overwhelming evidence presented, I have no choice but to rule in favor of Mr. Butler. The divorce is granted, with all assets to be divided as per the prenuptial agreement." Hannah's anguished cry echoed through the courtroom, but Ryan didn't flinch. He stood, buttoned his jacket, and walked out, leaving the chaos behind him. The judge's chambers were silent as Ryan sat across from his lawyer, Mason. The final paperwork lay on the desk between them, waiting for signatures. "Congratulations, Mr. Butler," the judge said, sliding the documents towards Ryan. "With my ruling, your divorce is finalized. As per the terms we've discussed, Mrs. Butler, or should I say, Ms. Reeves now, will receive no alimony or share of your assets due to her infidelity and financial misconduct." Ryan nodded, his pen hovering over the signature line. "And what about the business? My designs?" The judge smiled. "The court has granted a permanent injunction against Ms. Reeves and Mr. Barnard. They are prohibited from using any of your designs or client information. Furthermore, Mr. Barnard is facing separate charges for his role in the financial fraud." With a steady hand, Ryan signed the papers. As he did, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. It was done. Outside the courthouse, reporters clamored for a statement. Ryan stood at the top of the steps, Mason by his side. "Mr. Butler, how do you feel about the verdict?" Ryan's voice was calm and measured. "Justice has been served. That's all I have to say on the matter." As he made his way through the crowd, Ryan caught sight of Hannah being ushered into a waiting car. Their eyes met for a brief moment. In hers, he saw a mixture of anger, desperation, and something else, perhaps the realization of what she had lost. Ryan turned away, focusing on the road ahead. He had a new life to build. Weeks later, Ryan stood in his new office, boxes still unpacked around him. The view from the window showcased a different city skyline, a fresh start. His phone buzzed with a message from Kimberly. "How's the new job? We miss you already." Ryan smiled as he typed his reply. "It's a challenge, but that's exactly what I needed. Miss you too, sis." As he set the phone down, Ryan's eyes fell on a framed photo on his desk. It showed him with his parents, taken just months before their passing. He picked it up, his thumb tracing their smiling faces. "I did it," he whispered. "I made things right." A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. His new assistant poked her head in. "Mr. Butler? Your 2 o'clock is here." Ryan set down the photo, straightened his tie, and stood. "Thank you, Sarah. Send them in." As he prepared to greet his new clients, Ryan felt a sense of purpose wash over him. The past was behind him, and the future, with all its possibilities, lay ahead. Epilogue. 3 years passed, each day taking Ryan further from the pain and betrayal of his past. His new firm had flourished, quickly gaining a reputation for innovative designs and uncompromising integrity. Ryan found himself respected in his field, his name mentioned in the same breath as architecture's brightest stars. On a rainy evening, Ryan sat in his penthouse apartment, going over plans for his latest project. The soft patter of raindrops against the windows provided a soothing backdrop to his work. A sudden knock at the door startled him from his concentration. Frowning, Ryan checked his watch. It was past 9 p.m., far too late for any expected visitors. As he opened the door, the sight before him made him freeze. Hannah stood in the hallway, a far cry from the polished, confident woman she'd once been. Her clothes were worn, her once perfect hair now lank and unkempt. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, which looked up at Ryan with a mixture of desperation and hope. "Ryan," she breathed, her voice cracking. I need to talk to you." For a moment, Ryan said nothing, simply taking in the sight of his ex-wife. Then, wordlessly, he stepped aside, allowing her to enter. Hannah stumbled into the apartment, her eyes darting around, taking in the evidence of Ryan's success. When she turned to face him, her face crumpled. "I'm so sorry, Ryan," she sobbed. "I was wrong. So terribly wrong. I've lost everything, my job, my friends. Bobby's in jail. I have nothing left." She stepped towards him, hands outstretched pleadingly. "I know I don't deserve it, but please, can you find it in your heart to forgive me? To give me another chance?" Ryan listened silently, his face impassive. He could see the Hannah he'd once loved in this broken woman before him, but he also remembered the calculating manipulator she'd revealed herself to be. When Hannah finished, tears streaming down her face, Ryan finally spoke. His voice was calm, devoid of anger, but also of warmth. "Goodbye, Hannah." With that, he opened the door, gesturing for her to leave. Hannah's face crumpled anew as she realized the finality of his words. She shuffled past him, pausing in the hallway to look back one last time. But Ryan had already closed the door. As Hannah's sobs faded down the hallway, Ryan turned back to his apartment. He walked to the window, looking out at the rain-soaked city below. A small smile played on his lips, not one of joy at Hannah's suffering, but of satisfaction. Justice, in its own way, had been served. The wheel had turned, and those who had sought to destroy him had ultimately destroyed themselves. Ryan returned to his desk, to the plans that represented his future. He had built a new life from the ashes of betrayal, and he wouldn't let the ghosts of his past haunt him any longer. As he immersed himself in his work, Ryan felt a sense of peace wash over him. He had survived, he had thrived, and now, finally, he was free.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy the story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.
When I turned 18, my life took a difficult turn. My parents, Rachel and Gregory, and my twin sister, Olivia, decided there wasn't enough space for me at home, essentially forcing me to leave. For the next few years, I struggled with an unstable life, moving from one temporary living situation to another, even living in a tent at one point. I did whatever I could to get by. Despite these challenges, I eventually built a stable life and was able to buy my own house. Now, at 26, just as I've gotten my life in order, my family has suddenly appeared. Led by Olivia, who is now expecting her 4th child, they showed up at my door unannounced, looking to move in. This is the same sister who once pushed for me to be kicked out, saying there wasn't enough room for both of us in our childhood home. Growing up, I always felt like I was treated as less important than Olivia. It was clear Rachel and Gregory preferred her, and they even admitted they wouldn't have had me if Olivia hadn't been conceived. She was always the center of attention, getting all the best toys and clothes, while I barely received enough to keep up appearances. Olivia has always shown selfish, narcissistic traits, likely because of how her parents favor her. Instead of being a supportive sibling, she consistently brought me down. The only person who ever treated me kindly in our family was my grandfather, Edward. He saw how unfairly I was treated, but when he passed away when I was 15, the last bit of kindness in my home disappeared. When Olivia got pregnant as a teenager, Rachel and Gregory married her off to her boyfriend, Liam, and brought him to live in our already crowded house. This left me without even a couch to sleep on. My dad, Gregory, sometimes slept on the living room couch, so that wasn't an option either. With nowhere else to go and being told not to ask relatives for help so the family's dysfunction would stay hidden, I was completely forced out. I ended up living in a tent in our backyard, which happened after the police mistakenly brought me home during a brief period of homelessness. This setup was meant to be a reward for keeping quiet about the reality of my living situation. After years of struggle and hard work, I finally managed to improve my life both physically and emotionally. Now, as my family tries to intrude on the life I've carefully built, I'm at a crossroads, unsure how to deal with their unexpected and unwelcome return. They had once offered me a spot to live in their backyard, but only if I cleaned it up first. Despite the mess, which was littered with flour, sugar, and overrun by rodents, I accepted. At one of the lowest points in my life, I saw this as an opportunity and quickly moved in. Olivia, on the other hand, was relieved to see me go, pointing out that there wasn't enough room for me at her place. No one even asked where I was planning to go. Transforming the backyard into a livable space was tough, especially dealing with the rodent problem, but I eventually made it work. Unfortunately, the situation forced me to drop out of high school just a few months before my final exams. My friends encouraged me to stay in the backyard and finish school, but by that time, I had already given up on that path. Instead, I focused on working, relying solely on my earnings to get by. Before long, I realized I needed to improve my skills for a better future. Gregory was a service technician, and as a kid, I often played with his tools instead of toys, helping him with household repairs. That early experience came in handy later as I decided to invest in my education and eventually got a job at a car manufacturing plant. I worked hard and steadily climbed the career ladder until I became a design manager. Recently, an old friend, Ethan, who was going through a divorce, needed to sell his house quickly. Even though I was hesitant at first, the huge discount and flexible payment plan he offered were too good to pass up, so I decided to buy it. I bought a 4-bedroom house and moved in about 3 weeks ago. To my surprise, my estranged family showed up unannounced at my new home. I hadn't had any contact with them for years, and I lived 17 miles away, so their visit was completely unexpected. I suspect a neighbor who still follows me on social media might have told them where I live. When they barged in, Rachel and Gregory expressed pride in my accomplishments, but it felt strange to see them react to me owning a house at 26, especially since they were still renting. Olivia and Liam wandered around the house as if they were inspecting it to move in. When I confronted them, they vaguely claimed they were just checking on me. It was ironic that they suddenly showed interest in my life, now when I didn't need them anymore. During their visit, Olivia boldly claimed a bedroom for herself, excited about the private bathroom, as though it was already decided that they would move in. Gregory and Rachel tried to calm her down, asking her to manage her children better. In the middle of this chaos, I was shocked and immediately shut down any discussion about them moving in. The situation quickly escalated as they started pushing the idea that I had a moral obligation to house Olivia because of family duty. I stood my ground, reminding them that it was their responsibility, not mine, to provide for their children. I firmly told them to leave my home, making it clear that I wouldn't feel guilty for their poor planning or lack of space. As they left, I felt a sense of peace, knowing I was living on my own terms, free from the pressure of their unwanted expectations. I recalled how, back when I was younger, my grandfather Edward allowed my cousin to sleep on the couch, but when I asked for the same favor, he refused and kicked me out. I vented about how I had struggled, living with rodents in my employer's garage, and then in a cramped apartment for 10 years, but no one from my family ever checked on me. When I shared these memories, Rachel began to cry and try to hug me, but I stopped her and insisted they leave. Liam, my brother-in-law, told me to toughen up, bringing up his own hard times and saying I had more than enough space in my house since I was single. I sharply told him to stay quiet. Olivia cursed at me for raising my voice at her husband, but I stood firm and told them they needed to leave or things would escalate. I made them leave before they could argue back. My anger was clear. I had endured their toxic and selfish behavior for too long, and now their greed was obvious. I was no longer the obedient teenager they used to manipulate. If they had pushed any further, I was fully prepared to involve the police. To clarify, Olivia never once offered to pay rent. She and Liam had been freeloading off Rachel and Gregory for over a decade, and now they seemed determined to do the same with me. Despite the clear strain this put on Rachel and Gregory, They never took any steps to encourage Olivia to become independent. Instead, they tried to dump the responsibility onto me. A week after our first confrontation, Rachel returned, but this time she was more direct. She argued that my home had enough room to house Olivia and her family, again mentioning how crowded things were at their place. I stayed firm in my refusal. When persuasion didn't work, she shifted to veiled threats, implying that my large, mostly empty house was a security risk and that having family around would be safer and helpful with household chores. I dismissed her manipulative tactics and told her clearly to leave and not come back. Just a few days later, a neighbor informed me of suspicious activity around my house. He said he had seen a pregnant woman, a man, and a young boy peering through my windows and hanging around the backyard, likely trying to break in. I was grateful for his vigilance, gave him my contact information, and asked him to keep an eye on things. I had planned to install security cameras, but unfortunately, I didn't act fast enough. 5 days later, the same neighbor called to say he thought someone had broken into my home. When I rushed back, I found out he was right. Olivia and Liam had entered through a rear window. When I confronted them, Olivia tried to justify their actions, claiming they had no other choice and accusing me of being unreasonable. As I processed her audacity, Liam smugly commented on how easy it had been. I lost my temper and physically confronted him. Olivia tried to get between us, and in the chaos, their teenage son hit me over the head with a bottle, leaving me bleeding. The situation spiraled out of control, and Olivia called Rachel and Gregory, telling them I was the aggressor. When the police arrived, they began sorting things out while Olivia and Liam frantically apologized, begging the officers not to arrest their son. Despite their pleas, I was ready to press charges against all of them. However, Olivia denied the break-in and assault, claiming it was just a family visit gone wrong and that her son's actions were only a prank. When Rachel and Gregory arrived, they immediately took Olivia's side, pressuring me to drop the charges. They banded together to defend her and tried to make me out to be the vindictive one. Faced with their collective denial and manipulation, I realized they were determined to gaslight me into submission. I was determined not to let my family rewrite the narrative of what had happened in my own home. Thankfully, my neighbor stepped forward with a crucial statement, which ultimately led to the arrest of everyone involved in the assault. They spent the night in jail because Rachel and Gregory couldn't afford their bail. The next morning, while they faced trial, I was at the hospital getting treated for my injuries and making sure there were no internal damages. I took a few days off to recover and press charges for assault, also seeking compensation for my legal fees, which the court granted. Despite Rachel and Gregory's attempts to persuade me to drop the charges, I stood firm. I even threatened legal action against them for their role in orchestrating the attack. Since my nephew is a minor, he was dealt with under juvenile law and only spent a short time in a juvenile facility, with his parents held responsible for restitution, lost wages, and covering my medical expenses. Olivia and Liam were fined heavily. In an attempt to ease their financial burden, they asked the court to allow them to complete part of their fine through community service. Since the incident, things have been relatively quiet. I hope Olivia and Liam have learned their lesson and will keep their distance. However, Rachel and Gregory haven't let this go. Just yesterday, they showed up at my door and waited outside for an hour until I reluctantly let them in. They pleaded for my help, but when it became clear they were speaking on behalf of Olivia, I immediately refused to get involved. That's when they revealed their real reason for visiting. They were getting older, their home was falling apart, and they wanted to move in with me, expecting me to take them in out of duty. I confronted them about their lack of responsibility as parents. They mentioned the idea of giving their house to Olivia, which I saw as another tactic to pressure me. They even suggested that Olivia could pay rent to live in my house, and that I could use it to cover my mortgage. I firmly declined, stating that Olivia needed to handle her own financial problems without my involvement. They continued to plead, arguing that my house was too big for just one person. But I made it clear that my future plans didn't involve staying single or accommodating them out of obligation. Their attempts at emotional manipulation didn't work. I reminded them of how they had treated me in the past and emphasized that I would not be guilted into giving in. It was obvious they were trying to use family ties to their advantage, but I remained firm in setting boundaries to protect my well-being. After they left, visibly upset, I closed the door behind them. Regardless of whatever names they might call me, I resolved not to give in to their demands or let them take advantage of me. This experience has been a harsh reminder of how toxic and manipulative my family can be. Despite their actions, I refuse to let them drag me back into the chaos I've worked so hard to escape. I've built a life of independence and stability, and I intend to keep it that way. Now, I'm ready to move on to the next chapter in my life, stronger and wiser from this experience. I've decided to install security cameras to ensure my home remains my sanctuary and to prevent any further intrusions. No matter how hard they try, I am determined to protect the life I've created for myself. It's not just about keeping them out, it's about finally putting myself first.